course, I haven't gotten your email yet. I got your link on my phone, but not on Skype.
Could be wrong.
There we go. I am also sending it as a text.
I got a report that just heard you, Mary.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, but it's the link for the header.
Yeah. So the link for the new one just went out because I get it now that I'm a parent. Laura Harris says all good. And Melissa, can you hear?
Hello?
I can hear you. I'm hoping we're okay on the. I can't hear this. Can you guys,
Your mic on? Yes.
I need to turn off my mic? Okay. Can you guys hear me now? Okay, I'm hoping this is now working with the new link. Oops, I can't hear Laura. Well, they can hear us, we just can't hear.
No audio in the room.
And then, so I'm gonna go on and start reading some comments again, and then in a little while I'll take a break and have someone do a comment in public.
They can hear us?
I think they can hear us. I heard the video might be freezing, but the audio is fine, so I'm going with audio. So if they can't see me, I'm okay with that. My name is Kate Nagy, and I teach EL Social Studies and Resource at Field. I have been with the district for 8 years. My first year, I held a teacher assistant position, and it was during this time I came to understand what makes our district so special. I became motivated to secure a teaching position here at Field. Field's culture of collaboration, mutual respect, support, and genuine friendship made it a unique place to work. Our staff is committed to excellence for themselves and their students and are constantly striving to provide educational experiences of the highest caliber. This building feels like a home and the people feel like family. Ordinarily in August, I begin to prepare for the upcoming year with a sense of excitement, brainstorming new strategies I want to implement and new activities I think my students will enjoy. This year, however, I feel fear for my students and colleagues I care so deeply about. I worry about the psychological toll returning in person will have on my students. I don't want them to be I don't want them to be fearful of becoming sick. I do not want them to be fearful about the possibility of bringing the virus home to immunocompromised, aged, or otherwise at-risk family and community members. I'm worried about the frustration and loneliness they may feel from being physically at school but unable to normally and safely socialize with their friends and teachers. Lastly, I'm concerned for myself and my family. I know that our district has worked tirelessly to produce plans that will secure the safety of our students and staff, but as we learn more about this virus, we learn just how hard it is to control. Each day, the news provides examples of schools and camps that open only to then close their doors because of spikes in cases. Last March, I was so proud of this district for our ability to transition to e-learning seemingly overnight. While e-learning is not anyone's preferred method of learning or delivering content, it has proven to be the safest option. Everyone wants to go back to normal. Teachers want to be with students. Students want to be at school, and parents want their children to receive an in-person instruction. I completely understand and share these feelings, but we need to do what is safe. I implore the board to reflect on the severe risks of in-person instruction and allow us to provide instruction in the safest way possible, e-learning. My name is Heather Stadola, and I have taught sixth grade science at District 31 for 17 years. Over the years, I have frequently reflected on how fortunate I am to have found a school where the staff feels like family. Not only have I found some of my closest friends here, but I'm constantly impressed by my colleagues' level of commitment, creativity, and dedication to bettering themselves in their teaching. It's amazing to watch teachers working together to make curriculum more accessible to our students and create authentic learning. I not only get to watch students grow through the 3 years at Field, but with the help of our amazing community, I get to know how they are doing in high school and beyond. It is truly a special place. I know the spring wasn't easy and it wasn't perfect. Our community was thrown into an incredibly different situation with little to no answers. We were all trying to figure out how to work at home, teach students, take care of our families, and trying to stay safe without knowing what was really out there and that we might need to fight it without toilet paper. What I do know is that I saw my colleagues working at all hours of the day to take the curriculum we planned to teach in the classroom and make it work from afar. Even when the state determined that lack of work wouldn't hold students back, teachers reached out to students to try to help them learn, to keep them on track. So how do I feel about going back? I'm scared. I'm scared of a disease that is still so unknown and is not under control. I am scared of having even one member of our students, teachers, staff, administration, or community fall ill and pass away. I am scared of not doing enough every day to keep the kids healthy and safe, even with all the precautions we want to put in place. I'm scared how my students will feel when they return to a building stripped of a lot of the normal comforts like flexible seating, hugging a friend, working in groups with peers, or just being able to walk around the room when they need a quick movement break. There's a lot to be scared about. That being said, when Dr. Miller asked if I was coming back, the answer was yes. If that is what the board decides, I will be back. That's what a lot of my colleagues will do. They are scared, but they will come back. We do it for the kids. So why this letter? We all know that the local numbers have been rising, and there's a good chance that we will be called to return to remote learning at some point, and at this rate, it may be sooner rather than later. For me, the real question is, how do I best plan and prepare for this year? Either way, I have a lot of work to do. We picked a great new curriculum last year for science, but it focuses on inquiry. That means lots of group discussion, hands-on learning, and coming together to determine information, not just learning from a book. Whether we are together and 6 feet apart or remote learning, they can't look the same as it did before March 13th. I don't want to lose that aspect of science, so I need to get creative with what I need, and what I need is time. We all need time. Most of us are planning on using the last couple of weeks of our summers to prepare for this year. If we are likely to return to remote learning anyways, let me focus on that. Let me investigate resources and ways to make this work. Let me come up with ways to get to know my students since I may not get to see them in person. Let me work with my team to make 6th graders feel welcome to a new school when they miss so much of the transition time in the spring. Let us work on how we can work with the families to keep the kids learning, to try and take away some of the stress of learning from home. There are a lot of good things we can do to make this year great for our kids, but time is crucial. All I know is that there is no right or wrong decision here, and I do not envy you for needing to make it. What I do know is that we have so many amazing staff here in District 31 that are beyond ready to jump in and make this work. And if we decide to make remote learning our choice, we will give everything to make our students succeed. My name is Pam Wolney, and I'm a veteran District 31 teacher. Some of you know me, but for those who don't, I have been a Spanish teacher at Field School for the past 16 years. Making the decision to come to the district was the best professional decision I have made. I love the community and its true diversity. On average, I teach over 100 students per day across the 3 grade levels. One of the best parts of the job is making connections with our students that sometimes last for 3 years while they are here at Field, and often kids stay in touch even after they have graduated. It is such a joy for me to serve District 31, and I do not take it for granted. I feel very lucky to work for our unique community. Over the years, I have changed my teaching methods. I was fortunate to be trusted with curricular design related to my area, and over the past decade, I have transformed my curriculum to align with best practices regarding language acquisition. Maybe some of you remember your high school days in memorizing verb conjugations and vocabulary lists. Our Spanish program is nothing like that anymore. We aim for proficiency, that is the ability to use the language to communicate in meaningful ways. Gone are the days of memorize and regurgitate. My classroom is generally a very lively place. We sing, we dance, we laugh, and we try to speak Spanish as much as we can. Kids work in pairs and groups. There's a lot of noise in my room. Sometimes I worry my neighboring colleagues are wondering what is going on. I even tease the students and ask them why they're having so much fun since this is a school, no fun allowed. This brings me to the reason I'm writing to you today. Back in May, I came into the building to clean up my classroom for the year. I vividly remember sitting at my desk, looking at the 24 desks, 3 standing desks, my round table, and my comfy chairs, and wondering when, if ever, we might be able to return to life as it was before. Whatever, we might be able to return to life as it was before the coronavirus arrived, putting every single one of us in a world of turmoil and confusion. It is hard to express what I was feeling as I sat there. I was filled with sadness, missing my students desperately, and picturing the last few days before we were all abruptly sent home. This week, I will need to come back into the classroom and get ready for in-person learning. There will only be 16 desks, all spread out the requisite 6 feet apart. There'll be no flexible seating. There'll be no collaborative group work unless it is done via computer. How will my students have conversations in a new language from 6 feet away? Will we be allowed to sing our songs loudly, or is it too dangerous now, as it may fill the air with aerosols despite our face coverings? Over the years, I have managed my class with a lot of nonverbal communication. I rely on my facial expressions and proximity to the students, discipline, support, and more. I certainly won't be able to use proximity to help a struggling child, which I have done so many times over the years. I will try to make my facial expressions seen, but since they will see only half my face, maybe the message I am trying to send will be lost. Being a language teacher, I rely on students being able to hear me clearly, to enunciate my words, and see my lips as they speak. Learning a new language is no easy task. On a good day, I am struggling to visualize what this will look like with mass social distancing, no collaborative work, no sharing of materials and manipulatives, and no activities that allow them to get up and move. Of course, I would be lying if I didn't say that doing the job from a computer screen is also challenging. During the final quarter of the year, I worked so hard to make my classes as engaging as I could from a screen. We tried our best to continue with our curriculum in a way that was not overwhelming, and I seemed to have a fairly decent amount of participation, considering that students knew that they could not really be held accountable. So here we are. A new school year is upon us, and we all have decisions to make, perhaps some of the hardest decisions we ever made. I'm truly concerned for the safety of our community. I know that Dr. Murphy has worked tirelessly all summer to try and develop a plan that would allow students to safely return to our schools. This is truly what everyone hopes for and wants, teachers included. The thought of not being able to be with my students, especially my 8th graders, some of whom I have taught for their entire time at Field, is devastating. However, the thought of losing a student or a student losing a family member in our community is too much to bear. How can we return to the classroom at this time when, as a nation, we do not have this virus under our control? I do not believe that we can stay home and hide forever, but I do believe with my whole heart that this is not the time to return. The virus is everywhere, and children are not exempt from getting it or spreading it. Many of my colleagues have serious health concerns preventing them from being able to return. Even I have health concerns, but rather than apply for a remote position, I prefer to leave it for those for my colleagues that have more serious concerns. I do not enjoy teaching from home, but it is my opinion that this is what we should be doing, at least to start the year. I'd love to see a phased-in approach and bring kids back when the infection rates are better controlled. Starting the year remotely would give the teachers something they desperately need, the ability to plan and prepare for one method of teaching, at least for now. At this time, we do not know how long we will be able to remain in person. There is no consistency for our students if they are in school for a time and then sent home, creating the back and forth and preventing us from ever establishing a true routine. What will happen if teachers or groups of students need to quarantine? It makes me dizzy just trying to imagine this. We will never know from one day to the next if there'll be school or not. How can our curriculum be consistent under these circumstances? The e-learning from the spring was not ideal. No teacher that I know enjoyed it, and we were incredibly restricted as the guidelines from the state gave us little to no leverage to hold students accountable. So we did our best from home to try and learn how to teach in a totally new way. We saw disengagement from students, and we don't want that this time around. Many teachers have been working on curriculum over the summer to prepare for the fall, even though we were supposed to be enjoying our summer vacation. To me, the choice is clear, although the decision does not rest on my shoulders. I truly believe the safest way to start the year is remotely, and doing so will not only keep our community healthier and safer, it will allow us as educators to develop a much more robust online experience for our students. It will prevent us from having to confront unnecessary illness and even death within our community. I'm not trying to be dramatic, this is a reality. By now, I'm sure you've read the articles about the overnight camp in Georgia that shut down just after the few days because despite everyone arriving with negative test results for COVID, the virus still spread like wildfire, infecting almost half of the camp population. Other than sleeping, these camps mainly run outdoors, and even that did not keep these campers and staff safe. This is happening locally as well. We have all read about the athletic camps at Lake Zurich, as well as here at the Glenbrook Township at both schools. There is no decision that we will face that would face COVID within the walls of our school building, putting our precious students, their families, and our amazing staff and administrators all at work. I think we need to pause and really think about the impact of even one death in the community. Are we, as a district, okay with this? Are you as a board okay with even one death in District 31? I know I'm not. I would rather stay up until all hours of the night learning new ways to teach from the incredible resources that are out there and find a new way to do it better from the safety of our homes. I fully recognize the hardship this places upon working parents, for I'm a working parent and have to solve this problem with my own family as well. But I would rather have to find support in my home for my own child with unique needs than have to play for a funeral for any student or colleague. From my point of view, there is no other choice for now. My name is Katie Lauder, and I have been with District 31 for 10 years. Having grown up and worked in the community, I know of District 31's commitment to excellence and education and the social emotional growth and well-being of the community it serves. Whether I'm asked what I love most about my job, I say it's the people, the staff, the students, and the parents. I feel privileged to be part of this community. I'm thankful for the many opportunities I have to watch students grow and develop into remarkable leaders. Typically, the start of a new school year fills me with excitement and anticipation. I cannot wait to greet our incoming sixth graders and share my love of field with them as they acclimate and explore the new environment that they will soon call home. Yet this school year brings different feelings and challenges. When school ended in June, I was desperate for us to return in the fall. At the time, I felt that starting sixth grade remotely with new faces in a new building would be too challenging. However, I now feel as though it would be best to begin with remote learning. The risks of attending in person are too high, and the transition from in-person to remote may be more challenging for students rather than sticking with one mode of learning. I worry that if students start, many will feel uneasy about catching the virus and spreading it to family members. In the spring, many students expressed anxiety over losing family members to the virus. I doubt that the summer has quenched their fears. Students will become more anxious attending classrooms spaced out for social distancing with teachers unable to convey their feelings due to masks. Therefore, the best option for students' physical and mental health safety is to learn remotely. This will allow staff members to plan rigorous, engaging curriculum for students while keeping everyone safe. Finally, in all honesty, I'm concerned about the health of family and friends. I teach with several staff members who themselves and or their loved ones are immunocompromised. I'm also the mother of two small children. Lucy is 2.5 years old and Jack, who is 1. I have luckily found a small at-home licensed daycare provider. While I do not have childcare concerns for the fall, I do worry about transmitting the virus to my children or their daycare provider. Therefore, I feel it is in their best interest to learn remotely to minimize the risk of exposure and infection. Thank you for all your hard work and time. This is not an easy decision to make, and it will be impossible to please everyone. I urge you to do what is best for the safety of the community and commit to e-learning. My name is Laura Barbonenti. I've been teaching for 21 years. I just completed my 10th year as an employee in District 31. As a teacher for 21 years, I truly love being an employee in District 31, and we are not only an amazing school district, but we are a family community. This family community is made up of wonderful parents, students, administrators, teachers, paraprofessionals, secretaries, custodians, etc. We have always been a vital support system for one another. This is the main ingredient that allows our school community to flourish. This past school year, District 31's family community was stunned by the closing of schools in March due to the pandemic. Our generation has never witnessed anything like this. We all did our best to support each other during the spring semester. The hours educators put into remote learning were countless. There were times I felt like a movie director as I video recorded a lesson for the umpteenth time to make sure it was perfect for my students that could not attend our actual meeting time. It was one of the more challenging times for me as an educator, and I would choose in-person learning any day over remote learning if there were not a pandemic. The virus has affected all age groups, people that are younger, middle age, older with health conditions, without health conditions, etc. It does not discriminate. The virus has only been in existence for a short time, and although our scientists are working diligently to understand and treat it, there are still many unknowns. At this point, I strongly believe that the risk of returning to in-person learning outweighs the benefits for all staff and students. Unfortunately, I have underlying health conditions. I am at higher risk for severe complications from this disease. With that being said, I've never felt so afraid in my entire life. I do not leave my house unless I absolutely have to. My backyard has become my safe haven. I know I'm not alone, and there are many colleagues of mine that also suffer from medical conditions, placing them in a higher risk category. I have requested to work remotely due to my health conditions, yet I've also been made aware that many people are making these requests and that the administrative team has the impossible task of having to pick and choose which employees qualify for these positions, as there are only so many to fill. What a daunting position they are in. There will be employees that will have to consider taking leaves. Many of us will be financially burdened and possibly have to cut back on healthcare benefits during these leaves. Again, this is only at the expense of this relentless virus. These are just a few of the countless factors that as employees we are facing. I have faith you will embrace this opportunity to ensure safety for all students and staff and heavily consider starting the school year remotely. We have worked together for 10 years to promote safety in this district. We need more than ever to come together as a family to support each other. I promise all of you that as a District 31 teacher, I will go above and beyond to teach your children and help support parents in any way I can during this complex time. We all need to remember that this is temporary, it will not last forever, but putting our students and staff in harm's way of this virus could have permanent effects. From Paula Delahanty, today Illinois had the biggest surge in COVID cases in 2 months. It's time to weigh what I believe the district should do. Teachers scrambled and succeeded to deliver remote instruction last spring. In my opinion, it was remarkably successful for the kids who participated. To that end, I strongly endorse remote learning this fall for at least term 1. We need the infection rate to reverse in Illinois to get a vaccine before going back to physical school. The sooner we make this decision, the more prepared we'll be with quality remote learning instruction on the first day of school. The kids are used to it, the teachers are used to it. It seems the most prudent to continue remote learning until we are truly safe. From Allison Bieber, I want to thank you all for your hard work and the many hours you have spent in your efforts to make the best possible decision for reopening schools this fall. I have been teaching in District 31 for 24 years. I began my career in District 31 as a student teacher, then as an assistant, and finally a teacher. I cannot be happier or more proud to call District 31 my home. Throughout my career, I've had to overcome many challenges in my personal life. The Board of Education, the administration, and staff had always been there to support me along the way. I am writing to voice some concerns I have regarding the beginning of the school year. There is nothing more exciting than the beginning of the school year. The looks on the students' faces as they enter their new classroom is priceless, especially in kindergarten. The fact is, the beginning of the school year will look different no matter what option is chosen, remote or in person. I'm asking you to consider the health and safety of the students, staff, and community. I worry about all the District 31 families. How will we feel if we lose a student, staff member, or extended relative and trace it back to a 31 program? I feel that this is a risk that is too big to take. We are learning more about the unpredictable virus every day and have seen many stories, restaurants, etc. open up only to have to close down again. When we have to switch to remote learning in the spring, it causes a lot of stress and anxiety for all involved, but most importantly, the students. I worry about the toll it will take on them to start the school year in such a different way, only to possibly be switched to remote learning. The students will be wearing masks, having to learn to social distance, and not be able to learn in a small group setting or even share toys with a new friend at brain break time. I'm hoping that you will decide to start the year remotely and plan to return slowly when science says it is safe to do so. Thank you for listening. Kelly Levy, I would like to start out by thanking each of you for the time and consideration that you're putting into the decision of reopening schools. This is such an important decision for all of us, children, staff, families, in our community. While I understand that there are different opinions as to how to best unfold the beginning of the year, I would like to share some of what has been on my mind. The beginning of the school year has always been one of my favorite times of the year. It is so exciting to reconnect with our students and families and to plan what the year ahead will look like. I absolutely want to go back to school. I just want to do that from a place where I feel safe. While there are certain things that are specific to being in a school building that are difficult to replicate from home, I believe that the most important things are not. We need to connect with our kids, make sure they feel safe, teach them, encourage them, challenge them, laugh at them, inspire them. All of these things can be done no matter what our backdrop looks like. We need to be creative with our delivery and how we connect, whether we are in person or remote, as both will be a completely different landscape from what we know. Our students need predictability, stability, security, and I worry that if we start in person and need to shift into remote and then back in person, this will not occur. Providing them with a consistent format in which to learn is so important. I believe it is important to look forward to the beginning of the year in a way that promotes a solid remote learning experience, building on all that we have learned in the spring and understanding that updated remote learning guidelines will help shape how we teach. I've kept myself educated as to what is going around us with this pandemic. I worry that this virus attacks in such unpredictable way that it is impossible to know how one will respond. I worry that our state numbers are increasing. I worry that while I want nothing more than to be in the building with our students, it could come at a cost none of us should be willing to pay. I want nothing more than to return up to our building and have a normal year, but this year is anything but normal. We look to you as a board to make difficult decisions that will keep our students and staff safe. I have been a teacher in 31 for 24 years, and I love what I do. I am dedicated to our district and look forward to teaching our children in the fall, no matter what it looks like, but ask that you consider allowing this to occur in a remote setting. From Jim LeBlanc, I hope this letter finds you and your families doing well in these most uncertain times. My name is Jim LeBlanc, and I'm one of your Winkleman PE teachers and a coach in multiple sports at Field. I'm writing this letter to you because I want to share my thoughts, insights, and concerns. I will be starting my 14th year in the district this year. Unfortunately, it is going to be a start to the year unlike any other. Instead of thinking about how excited I am to face new faces, along with the familiar faces of those who have grown 1 year older, I am more focused on how to approach this year with my many limitations, regulations, and challenges we face. Instead of seeing former students at field sports tryouts and wondering if and how sports will even happen this year. Because of my role as a physical education teacher, as well as the structure of PE classroom settings, we face unique challenges due to the fact that every student comes to the gym every day. By their nature, PE classes are more active and allow students to interact differently than in a regular class setting. In a COVID-free world, nothing is more important to me than facilitating students' physical and social development, fostering healthy lifelong habits, and providing a structured and fun environment where students are able to play and have a break from the normal classroom routine. The reality is that we are not living in a COVID-free world, and the critical threat of the disease poses huge safety issues for my particular classroom environment. In light of these challenges during PE, we will make use of the outdoor spaces and reframe units to best follow health guidelines. Due to the current uncertain times we are living in, however, we can't predict or anticipate all the impacts COVID-19 will have. I truly wish we would start the school year with in-person teaching, where returning students' biggest concern is when they will be participating in their favorite activity in the kindergartners' attempts to pronounce LeBlanc correctly. Unfortunately, children and parents are now faced with the real health dangers. We must all focus on how to prevent our students, their families, and our staff from contracting and spreading a horrible disease. COVID has changed the way we all need to think and prioritize when making decisions. Please be assured that I will be ready to teach our children on the first day of school, no matter what the format. As much as I don't want to teach PE online and interact with our students via computer, I believe that remote learning is the safest and best way to start the school year. From not a teacher, George Zamplis. I'm very concerned that if the board makes a decision that there'll be no in-class option, that'll open itself up to potential lawsuits by families who aren't able to keep their kids at home for full-time e-learning. While the circumstances of the current pandemic are novel, it does not mean that certain families should be discriminated against versus others simply because the parents work or that the students are being raised by a single parent who works. These considerations must be taken into account, as I can see a temporary restraining order being filed along with an injunction and suit for equal protection and anti-discrimination. Clearly, an option for either e-learning or in-class makes the most sense. From Gina Pierce. I want nothing more than to start the beginning of the year in the classroom. When we were given a survey back in late June, I said I would feel comfortable coming back. Cases were on the decline in Illinois and in much of the country. That was 6 weeks ago, and a lot has changed since then. Our numbers started to rise again, and the country exploded with cases. More and more information has come out about long-term effects. More and more information has come out about how, while children may not get as sick, they can easily spread the virus to others. I decided I wanted to be a teacher a long time ago. I was very dedicated to my job and worked hard every day. As a kindergarten teacher, I love being able to introduce students to school and help them foster a love of learning. I love building those connections and watching them grow year after year. I have already been working for hours this summer, unpaid, to get ready for the upcoming school year. But this is the reality. You are asking me to choose between your family and mine. You are asking me to put your needs before mine. If I return to work full time, I will be unable to see my parents and other family members who are at risk. I cannot risk exposing my family to a virus if I pick it up at school. Would you like to tell my children they can't see their grandparents? Do you think it's right that I can't see my parents? Have you considered the impact of in-person learning will have on teachers? I think everyone would agree that in-person instruction is more beneficial than remote learning. I think everyone would agree that most children want to go back to the building. I think everyone would agree that helping your child with e-learning and working full-time is difficult. I'm a parent too and did this in the spring. The pandemic has made many things difficult. However, the difficulty and challenging is without a doubt preferred over sickness and death. We all hope the virus goes away soon. We all hope things can return to normal. We all hope that students and staff don't get sick. We all hope that family members of students and staff don't get sick. Hope isn't going to keep us safe. Instead of waiting for the inevitable mandated closures of schools, let's spend the next few weeks building connections with family and students. Let us work together to fine-tune our e-learning program and gather resources and materials to enhance our program. Let's put safety and health first and return to school when we know it is safe and not just hope it is. From Anna Fong, did we meet the goal of having a pool of 30 substitute teachers? A licensed substitute teacher reached out to me saying she applied but is still waiting to hear back from the school or district. From Margot Schwartz Newton, I want to thank members of the administration, Board of Education, and staff and faculty for all the time, effort, and energy put into the thoughtful options for the coming year. There are no one-size-fits-all answers, and no options are perfect, but our family appreciates your attention to doing the best you possibly can. Thank you. From Karen Reyes, I'm writing this letter to you to state my feelings about the reopening of our school district. I'm deeply concerned about COVID-19 and how it will impact all members of our school community. I'm a staff member who has agreed to return to in-person learning, despite me and my other family members having underlying medical conditions. I recognize and understand the importance of being there for our student population, as we know that remote learning is not the preferred platform for instruction and learning for elementary students. In my conversation with school leadership, I stated that my intent is to return to school. However, I also shared that returning is based on knowing that my classroom and our school environment is absolutely safe for all students, staff, and visitors who enter our building. I am absolutely terrified of contracting this virus, especially after seeing the latest research from Lurie's Children's Hospital, showing that children are very likely to be asymptomatic spreaders. As I enter my 20th year, I am and will continue to be a proud, dedicated, and devoted teacher at Winkleman School. These qualities, along with my understanding of the educational, social, and emotional needs of students, drive my desire to return to a warm, nurturing classroom environment where the children's educational needs are best met. At the same time, I'm literally losing sleep over the prospect of returning to the classroom because it may be a setting that could potentially cause the virus to spread rampantly throughout our learning community. I know there is no easy answer or solution to our dilemma of whether or not to return to in-school learning. As you balance the needs of the community stakeholders, I appreciate the commitment from our board and administration with having this incredibly tough conversation. Thank you for listening and understanding my apprehension in returning to school. Kiet Wash. The e-learning and hybrid plans are not a manageable option for many working families. District leadership acknowledges the problem, but has not been willing to find solutions for the families in need of help. The TIES program offered at the Park District is not a solution. The program is costly and operates on a lottery system. It feels like the district is shifting the health risk into a private or community setting and offering little help and support to families who face the challenge of limited job flexibility and financial constraints. Jenna Norman. I have been an elementary education teacher for 11 years. Teaching and connecting with young children is my passion. I love waking up every day, getting to see my students' smiling faces and watching them learn and grow. This pandemic has been heartbreaking for a variety of reasons for many of us. Not being able to see my students this past spring was devastating for me, but I always knew it was the right thing to keep everyone safe and healthy. As teachers, safety is always our number one priority, and this is something I'm constantly discussing with my students to make them feel comfortable in the classroom. It saddens me to think about what an elementary classroom could look like in the fall. To think of my students sitting 6 feet apart at desks and mats makes me sad. If you walked into my classroom on a typical day, you would see children working and laughing together, peer reviewing each other's work, learning how to problem solve and work together and sharing materials. Returning to the classroom during a pandemic will look very different. Students will be unable to work together and build their ever so important social emotional skills. I am sad that I may not be able to comfort a crying child with a hug or a handshake, which is such an innate response for a kindergarten teacher. I am afraid. I'm afraid for my life if we go back into the classroom. Will young students realistically be able to stay 6 feet apart and wear masks all day? How will students walk socially distanced down a hall? What if a student has a doctor's note exempting them from wearing a mask? All students will be taking masks off to eat in the classroom. Do we have proper ventilation? Are we doing temperature checks? There are some thoughts that keep me up at night. So now I have to choose my passion or my health. This is such an impossible decision, but as someone with an underlying health condition, I have to choose my health. There are so many unknowns about COVID-19. Having students and teachers in a room all day without a standard for what constitutes sufficient ventilation to avoid this highly infectious respiratory disease and the likelihood of uneven mask usage is too great a risk for me. Lurie's Children's Hospital in Chicago released an article on July 30th, 2020, titled "Young Kids Can Spread COVID-19 as Much as Older Children and Adults." A quote from the article says, "Findings published in the JAMA Pediatrics point to the possibility that the youngest children transmit the virus as much as the other age groups. The ability of younger children to spread COVID-19 may have been under-recognized given the rapid and sustained closure of schools and daycare during the pandemic. Just this past week, a camp in Georgia reported infections of 260 campers and staff. One of the Illinois Department of Public Health COVID-19 metrics for our region's daily positivity increases is already flashing red. Please know, as a remote teacher, I would go above and beyond to do what I need to do to connect with my students. I will make weekly visits and sit in front yards teaching socially distanced lessons if I have to. I will do whatever it takes. I make a promise to my students every year to do everything I can do to make them safe, and I know I can do that with a remote teaching model. I want to be with my students just as much as they want to be with their peers and teachers. This pandemic will be temporary, so please, until COVID-19 transmission is better understood, there are better therapeutics, or hopefully a vaccine. Let us do what we can do now to keep students and teachers safe so we can all move forward together. If remote learning to start the school year makes sense for GBS, GBN, and Glenbrook District 34, then it makes sense for District 31. Case Carvel. It is one of the great privileges of my life to teach the students in this community. During my decade of service in this district, I have seen students collaborate to create amazing compositions, presentations, and performances. I am particularly blessed to teach almost every student for almost 3 years of their time at Field. Playing a part in helping our children more fully realize the potential of who they are is the calling and purpose of my professional life. Many days are filled with extra rehearsals before and after school and during recess. In the first year of restarting our choral program, I directed the ensemble for free, and I loved every second of it. I would like to state as emphatically as I can, I love teaching here. Before I speak further, I want to acknowledge and thank you for a summer of tireless, thankless work, sifting through an ever-changing landscape of expectations and reactions. I don't think any person watching or reacting to this decision envies the position you are in. Whether I agree or disagree with your final decision, please know that I will execute that decision with every bit of as enthusiasm and expertise I am capable of. That being said, I would be remiss if I did not mention my concerns about the idea of beginning the school year in hybrid instruction. My concerns are rooted in what is best for students' academic growth, social emotional growth, as well as health and safety. Academically, I am concerned about how rigid our lessons will have to be able to be completed in person and remotely simultaneously. This will result in the same screen time intensive strategies that were necessarily in remote learning, with the added distraction of monitoring students' accurate use of social distancing and PPE. The best strategy for classroom management is an active and engaging lesson, and the best practices for safety with social distancing are not inherently compatible with that. Also, all of our lessons need to be ready to transition to remote learning for all with limited notice due to an outbreak. When all students are using remote learning, more focus can be placed on the delivery of our lessons. This will not be the e-learning students experienced last school year, because teachers will be allowed by ISB to hold students to our typical academic standard. If safety prohibits us from using the best teaching practices that we have been cultivating over the course of our careers, what is the academic benefit to returning to in-person instruction? Many would say that the socialization opportunities in-person instruction offers is the benefit, but we do not have reliable data on what the social impact of a silent mass distance school environment will actually be. Rather than learning to share, having free unstructured time to speak and play, and enjoying opportunities to work in teams and ensembles towards common goals, our students will be alone in a crowd. They will be so close to all the great experiences associated with school, but unable to actively engage in them. One of the greatest places for students to develop their social skills is the extracurricular activities we offer. Many of these activities will not be offered due to the safety to begin the year. Furthermore, if a student becomes the source of an outbreak, what impact will that trauma have upon their social development? Most of all, I do not believe that it is safe for in-person instruction to resume without quick daily COVID-19 testing. There have been significant outbreaks in similar age groups in sports camps as near as Lake Zurich, showing that our area is not immune to an outbreak. The major outbreak in YMCA camps in Georgia shows that students can experience symptoms and spread the virus rapidly. The inability of professional sports teams to prevent outbreaks with far greater resources than those available to us further demonstrate the challenges of making our buildings safe. I do not think a compelling case can be made for in-person instruction as safe. In addition to it not being safe for our student, it is not quite safe for our staff. I'm generally afraid for the safety of my family given the high risk of exposure that is inherent to in-person instruction at this time. My wife Becca is asthmatic. My mother-in-law Cheryl, who will be watching our son Mikey twice a week, is diabetic. My 67-year-old mother Lynn also watched Mikey twice a week. Obviously, her age places her at the at-risk population too. In addition to the safety of my family, I fear what contracting this disease could do to my ability to continue to teach at a high level. Oftentimes, the mortality rate for COVID-19 is cited as evidence that most people who contract the disease will recover. However, many complications last indefinitely. A study from the University Hospital in Frankfurt in Germany found heart abnormalities in 75% of the recovering patients they studied, the majority of whom had mild enough cases of COVID-19 to recover at home. To risk the lives and long life health of our students, staff, and their families against a rising infection rate when vaccines or reliable self-tests are likely to be available in a matter of months is short-sighted. Thank you for hearing my concerns. I eagerly look forward to the time when we have moved past all the hardships the pandemic has caused and when we can return to true in-person instruction. From Willeen and John Singh, we just wanted to thank the administration, the board, and our District 31 teachers and staff for their tireless efforts to figure out what education looks like during a pandemic. I do not envy the decision-making and planning that has happened over these last several months, but I do appreciate all the efforts to make our adults and students safe and to provide a good educational experience. In particular, I thank the teachers and staff of District 31 because despite all these unknowns, they will be showing up for our students in ways they have never dreamed of. Our social media, in op-eds and in group texts, I've seen so many opinions on reopening schools. There's absolutely no good plan to follow during this time, and every decision in these last 3 months, whether large or small, has been nerve-wracking from all directions. Although remote learning was challenging for everyone in the spring, we were so impressed with the efforts of our District 31 teachers who showed up to every online class with enthusiasm and dedication. We don't know what direction tonight's meeting will take, nor can we foresee the next few months, but we just wanted to take the time right now to thank all the parties involved, especially the teachers and staff who've been giving and will continue to give our children the best education they can provide. From Brandon Berman, thank you all for your hard work and efforts. No matter what happens, we know that you've been working so hard for our kids and we appreciate it all very much. From Alicia Ike, I've been an employee of District 31 since 2003, or as I like to think of it, have closely connected with nearly 355 District 31 families in my duration of teaching in this district. I still remember the faces of my first class of 2003 as I do the students I just had this past year. While there have been many changes in District 31 since I have started here, one thing has stayed the same. I'm here for my students. My dedication and motivation to help students succeed has maintained the same throughout my entire District 31 career. Right up into the unforeseen pandemic. I love what I do. I love coming to work because of the students. Granted, they are the reason we are here, but in all the logistics that goes into school and teaching, it is always the students who are at the top of my list. The look on their face when something clicks, the excitement they have when they walk through the door after a long weekend, the camaraderie enjoyed amongst their peers. The list goes on and on. I'm the teacher who cries at the end of the year because I can't imagine a year without them. Then I do it all again the next year. The past spring presented unimaginable challenges and changes. Everyone's world was tipped upside down, but what did not change was my dedication to my students. Instead, it made me even more determined to reach them in ways I didn't even think were capable just months prior. Even in these summer months, I still think about my students each and every day. Heading into the fall, I'm nervous. I'm nervous that I'll not be able to commit to the experiences that make me the most, make me me, the experiences that make school school. At this point in time, and at this point in the pandemic, my role as parent has beyond enhanced my skill set as a teacher. The commitment to both leaves me at a crossroads where the two roles in my life are uniquely intertwined. If I'm granted an opportunity to work remotely from home, I can do it. My dedication in the spring, the way I maintain connection to the families, the way I spent countless hours way beyond contract hours to make school work and be meaningful for students, and what I learned along the way tells me. Going into the classroom while positivity rates are on the rise presents me with health and safety concerns. Since March 13th, my family has taken precautions and recommendations for our health very seriously. We made countless and often inconvenient sacrifices for our safety. We've had to work through many disappointments. Believe me, I want normal back just as much as the next person. But picturing my class of 5 and 6-year-olds in this new normal just makes me sad. It's not the normal they deserve to have. The small group work, rotating through ELA and math stations, and shared hands-on learning tools, the purposeful play, the special stories and meetings on the rug, waiting to see who this week's mystery reader will be, the giggles as they sit side by side, munching on their snacks and getting to know their new peers, those will not be. I worry about their social emotional well-being just as much as I worry about everyone's safety. We have an amazing staff that will hide their sadness and put on a happy face because that's just what they have to do. Teachers also won't show their stress over enforcing mask wearing and social distancing, adjusting to live streaming, and endless cleaning. But going into the classroom, especially for me with the risks involved, feels uncomfortable and worrisome at this point in the time of the pandemic. And I know it will tear me up on the inside. Unfortunately, there are people who have been socially irresponsible with taking the recommendations of the CDC, and heading back into the school building brings the risk I have worked so hard to minimize right back up to a level of concern. When asked a few weeks ago if I would hope for remote or in person, I truly didn't know. No, it neither felt right. But when my own children's school announced starting remote and is now creating criteria to slowly bring back groups of students when timing seems safe and appropriate, I feel a great sense of relief. As a parent, I can maintain my precautions at the same caliber for my children. As a teacher, I'm now up against a whole other childcare situation, but that is not the intent of my letter. Granted, remote has its concerns, but District 31 also has creative teachers and grade level teams that are thinking about ways to make connections and create positive learning experience until we can one day come together in a classroom and gather in a time that feels more safe and secure. District 31 has such dedicated, talented teachers that value their partnership with their students' families. This is from our teacher assistants, Ms. Les, Ms. Radzewski, Mrs. Guggenheim, Ms. Mueller, Ms. Paul, Ms. Kim, Ms. Rizkala, Ms. Yee, and Ms. Rizdick. We as the assistants are devoted to the community in which Winkleman resides. We give our all to the students and truly love each and every one of them. We can't even put into words the amount of appreciation we have for our faculty and staff, for the support they give us each year. We are truly grateful to have them all by our side. However, during this difficult and unprecedented time, because of the unforeseen continued pandemic, as much as we would like to be with our students in person and work directly with staff, we feel that it would be best for the safety of our students and staff to start the year off remotely. We are quite disappointed there has been no discussion with assistants in regards to your responsibilities this school year. We are not part of a team or a committee such as SLT, so our voice is not heard or given consideration. If we are exposed to more than 16 students and we work with multiple classrooms, if we did not watch the board meeting, we would not know the school's intentions. We are equal and we have a voice and we are human beings. We are one of the lowest paid staff members. That does not mean that we are meaningless. To the students, we are a sign of hope and joy. We represent at times teacher, nurse, doctor, and mother figure. We are not meaningless. We are equal. We have a voice, and we are human beings. We take active intruder training in order to do our best to save the lives of students as well as our own. There is no training against the silent intruder known as COVID-19. We cannot protect them. We cannot save ourselves. We cannot guarantee their survival from COVID-19 or our own survival. You might state that masks are the best protection, but for at least an hour out of that day, masks will be off. We say at least 1 hour because there has been no discussion as to how much lunch and recess periods assistants will have to work. For the time that we are in the classroom during lunch, masks are off. Assistants are walking around amongst the students, opening lunches, water bottles, helping with juice boxes and milk, all of which we need to touch that students would be able to drink or eat. These items might have been touched by a student or family member already contaminated with the COVID-19 virus. You might say that the assistants will be wearing their masks, but for those of you who don't know how the masks work, we are not being protected. The students are from us, but we are not from them, and they are not protected from each other. During lunchtime, they will be talking, chewing, yelling, laughing, and at that time, the room is full of particles going into our eyes, nose, mouth, landing on the students' meals and drinks, and we are all students and assistants just sitting targets, having to allow all the particles, even those with COVID-19, to land on us. Then we head outside for recess, at which time there is no safety, no masks are worn. The children are laughing and playing, yelling and screaming, all of which produce high quantities of aerosol, and it is our responsibility as assistants to keep the children safe and socially distanced. Again, we are sitting targets, having to soak in all the particles, even those containing COVID-19. Again, no discussion, but we are equal, we have a voice, and we are human beings. For hours, we, students and assistants, are saturated with the invisible intruder known as COVID-19, not able to wash it off our bodies, out of our eyes, nose, or mouth, or get rid of what has been ingested by the students. We can only wash our hands. That is our only defense. We cannot keep the students safe, and we cannot ensure their or our survival should any of us catch COVID-19. Even one life lost is too many. The only way to ensure that the virus doesn't spread throughout the school or community is to teach remotely. We ask the board members and administration to hear our voices and strongly consider starting the school year remotely. From Carolyn Shoemaker and Christina Falzone. First and foremost, thank you for your countless hours of dedication that you have put forth in making this excruciatingly hard decision on what is best for our families and staff of District 31 in the middle of one of the most challenging times the world has ever faced. We acknowledge that not everyone feels safe re-entering a school classroom at this time, but it is crucial to get our primary students back in the classroom to learn. From experience, young children learn best once they have formed a trusting relationship with their teachers. We fear that starting the school year strictly remote would not allow for these vital relationships to form, therefore negatively impacting student outcomes. While spring remote learning went well in District 31, students will still enter this year with many deficits. The academic and social deficits will only continue to increase, and the aftermath may be irreversible to these children's lives. We fully believe that we need to be extra cautious when planning for the upcoming school year. It is our hope that we can find a way to bring the children back into the classroom while ensuring everyone safely. From Quincy Jenkins. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. Thank you to each of the Board of Education members and the district administrators for the time, energy, and dedication you have put into having these discussions surrounding our schools reopening. This is indeed an extremely challenging time for all of us. I spent the bulk of my career in education in District 31. The staff members are my friends, and the students are the lights of our daily lives craves. When I go to work every day, I have the chance to help our children, to help them learn, express themselves, to problem solve, and to feel connected to school. I have the unique opportunity to share their joys, their sorrows, and their triumph. Over my years in this district, I have learned more from our children than I have ever learned in my professional training. Even my current go-to strategies for supporting anxiety, I learned in collaboration with one of my former students as we work through his fears and worries together. The best days are when I get the chance to teach this strategy to other children who are going through the same thing. When school begins next year, I wait excitedly to connect again with my students to continue to help them on their personal and educational journey. Being a school social worker is who I am and how I define myself. When my sister recently asked me if I was so worried about returning to school this fall, why did I not just quit my job and go into private practice? My answer was quick and simple. I would never abandon these kids, our kids. But I worry. I worry about these children who have never been to school before, how overwhelming those first few days are. How when they cry or need a hug, and we won't be able to comfort them. We won't be able to tie shoes, give high fives, work in small groups, or celebrate our successes with smiles we can actually see. I worry about our children who have experienced trauma as a part of the global pandemic. Those children who aren't ready to return and are too scared to tell anyone how terrified they are. Those children who think they are ready, who will only become further traumatized when schools close again this fall because of a second wave coupled with a typical flu season. I worry about our building's HVAC system that have been pieced together and do not always work even on the best of days. Is the system filtering what it is supposed to? Is the system recirculating the virus to our children and staff? What about classrooms that only have one window that opens, or classrooms or offices that do not have windows at all? I worry about those, but children and adults who will be exposed at school and then take the virus into their homes and spread it to their family, their caregivers, their grandparents. In all honesty, I worry that I will bring the virus into my own home where I have a child with asthma. I worry that due to exposure, I will not be able to see my parents or my two 85-year-old grandmothers because I cannot risk their lives. I worry about the unthinkable happening when the virus overwhelms someone and robs that person of what they are supposed to be. School children and school staff members were among the first sent home when the pandemic hit in March. Early reports stated that children were less likely to acquire the virus, thus less of a risk to all of us. Until very recently, there has been very little to show us the impact of the virus on children and those who are their caregivers, be it at home or school. However, on Friday, July 31st, the CDC released information regarding a sleepaway camp in Georgia, where reportedly before attending, all campers and staff submitted documentation that they were negative for COVID-19. Within just a few weeks, campers and staff became ill, were sent home, and an outbreak grew. Out of 260 staffers with positive results for COVID-19, 231 of those individuals were children under the age of 17. Let that sink in. The CDC is now saying, in reference to the sleepaway camp, this investigation adds to the body of evidence demonstrating that children of all ages are susceptible to SARS-CoV-2 infection and, contrary to early reports, might play an important role in the transmission. Children of all ages, contrary to early reports, COVID-19 does impact children. Children can become sick, they can bring the virus into their homes, they can spread it to adult, elderly, and vulnerable populations. Quite simply, there's too much at stake for us to return to in-person learning. I urge you not to adopt the mindset that if it can't happen here, it won't happen to us. I urge you to consider how many people we love an outbreak in our district will impact. Help all of our students, children, and families feel safe. Please consider opening our schools for remote learning only in the fall. From Sandy Newman, I have been fortunate to work in District 31 for the past 19 years. What has made District 31 unique is the passion, commitment, and support that is not only from our colleagues, but also from the students, administration, parents, and families that reside within the community. District 31 has been a big part of my life, professionally and personally. While working for District 31, I've been able to celebrate 19 8th grade class graduations, sit in the bleachers during various sports matches and cheer on our Tigers, attend numerous school musicals to support our students, celebrate daily accomplishments with our students, listen to the concerts put on by our field band over the years, watch our students at recess enjoy socializing with each other, witness students in the cafeteria catching up with each other between classes, push into classrooms, and experience the excitement of learning, and the list can go on and on. Although there have been many celebrations over the last 19 years, I've also experienced the following: supported students who are struggling academically and or socially, helped students grieve the loss of a loved one, overcome the challenges of changing family dynamics, provided comfort when a sporting event didn't go as planned, helping students adjust to moving in and out of the school district, grieved the loss of a colleague, and attended funerals of our former students. Personally, during the 19 years while I've been at Field, we are blessed with having a daughter, had to care for my ill parents that both passed months from each other in 2014 due to cancer. I overcame my own cancer diagnosis, and currently my husband and I are taking every precaution possible so that my in-laws who have weakened and compromised immune systems are able to be part of our lives for as long as possible. Yesterday, while having dinner with my in-laws, I asked them a question that I was scared to hear the answer to. The question that I proposed to them was, if I go back to school in person, would you still be willing to see me? There was a long pause and fear in their eyes as they thought about the question. We have all been traumatized by the impacts of COVID-19. Despite one's age, the one thing that we can collectively share is that in some way, COVID-19 has impacted every single one of us. People of all ages have missed spending time with friends, being able to celebrate major milestones with loved ones, going to sporting events, movies, and or attending theater performance, spending the day roaming through a shopping mall, traveling outside to Illinois to different locations, participating in athletics, going to camp, etc. COVID-19 has also impacted families in terms of loss of income, family business having to close, and or family members being laid off and coping with the fear of someone they know, love, contacting, and the possibility of dying from COVID. Since March, families have been encouraged to stay home, wear masks when in public, wash hands repeatedly, not be in large crowds, minimize spending time with each other, etc. Even with people doing what is asked, the numbers are continuing to climb on a daily basis. I surveyed many mental health professionals and asked them specifically, what would be less traumatic for our kids? Option A, starting face-to-face with one day, all students being sent home to learn remotely because it is no longer safe to be in school with the hope of one day being able to return, with students having to transition twice, if not more, which leads to increased anxiety. Or option B, students starting remotely knowing that they felt safe at home and will be returning to school once it is safe for everyone, with the hopes of students having to transition once in this model. These are some of the responses provided from mental health professionals that work specifically with children. Kids will be better if they start out remote and don't have to make all the transitions. I worry about all the trauma that can be caused by a student contracting COVID-19 and disappearing for weeks at a time or even dying, all while their classmates are in the classroom. What about the teacher who contacts COVID-19 then dies? The trauma of that would have grave consequences. I am concerned by the amounts of trauma and anxiety that can be caused by having have such strict sanitation and safety protocols. Social emotional skills can be taught remotely. Therapy can be provided remotely. Risk assessments and linking families with much needed resources can be done remotely. What is impossible is saving a life due to COVID-19. When we think about the best option, we need to consider the safest and most stable option for everyone. How we thought about the child bringing home COVID-19, which would cause a loved one to get ill or even pass away. The impact of losing a family member to COVID-19 is far more traumatic and difficult than not being able to see their friends or learning in a classroom face-to-face on a daily basis. After dinner, I texted my in-laws, letting them know how much they mean to me, letting them know how wonderful it was to have dinner together outside and even while being 6 feet apart. The text was sent with tears in my eyes since I was not certain of how much longer I'd be able to see them for in person. They feel comfortable seeing us knowing that we have taken the appropriate action since March to make sure that we are staying as healthy as possible. If school returns in person, I can no longer make that promise to my in-laws that have not possibly been exposed after being around 300 plus students in a building where there's poor ventilation, narrow hallways, classrooms, offices without windows, and a small building which makes it almost impossible to social distance. I am hoping that after the meeting tonight and hearing the voices from those of us who will be impacted most, it will be apparent that the safest decision for all will be to start the year remotely until it is determined safe for all places to open, which includes schools. From our custodians at Winkleman, Tim, Sean, Anthony, Renee, Chuck, and Dave, we, the maintenance and custodial staff at Winkleman School, would like to have our opinion presented to the District 31 School Board in regards to opening our schools at this time during the COVID-19 pandemic. It is our strong belief that the current situation in the state and the northern suburbs is of great concern. The rate of positivity for the virus is increasing daily. We strongly believe that opening the schools to teachers and students at this time poses a serious risk to the members of our department and to others. Perhaps at a later date, when the numbers are in a downward trend, a vaccine is readily available, or we may feel more comfortable reopening the building to all. From Molly Principe, first I'd like to thank you all for your hard work in preparing for the 2020-2021 school year. This has been the busiest summer full of unknowns and difficult decisions, and I appreciate the time and effort you have put in so far. Even though I just finished my first year of teaching in this district, I can say that I love being part of District 31. One of the things I love most about being part of our staff, especially the field staff, is our student-centered approach. We work together to create a culture of collaboration, and we focus on putting our students first. Even during our hasty transition to remote learning this past March, we committed to prioritizing our students. It is with our continued commitment to our students that we desire the safest environment for them to learn in now. I want to return to work in person, but I worry about our students. I worry about them feeling anxious about the major changes in their school day, where in-person learning looks and feels so different from what they remember. I worry about them not feeling safe in the building with so many people, even with safety measures such as masks and social distancing. I worry about them contacting the virus themselves and unknowingly spreading the virus to other family members in their household. I worry about the possibility of starting the school year in person, but having to retransition to remote learning after a short time. As much as I wish everyone could return to pre-COVID normal, I know that we can't safely get back to normal quite yet. I believe in order to prioritize the health and safety of all students, staff, and our community, we should begin 2020-2021 school year remotely. From Kathy Bergen, I wanted to take a moment to voice my concern about in-school learning. I work at the Winkleman School as the assistant to the principal. I am very concerned about the health of every single staff member, and that includes the custodians, assistants, the nurse, and us in the office. I'm 62, my husband is 65, and I have type 1 diabetic daughter that I worry about constantly. I'm hoping District 31 will consider remote learning until it is safe without a doubt to return to in-school learning. I love my job and don't want to jeopardize it by voicing my concerns, but I have concerns about staff and student learning. From Lori Shames. Thank you for taking the time to read my letter and for considering my concerns and requests to start the school year fully remote from students and staff. I have been a dedicated educator for 20 years. My teaching home has been at Winkleman School for 14 years, where I have been inspired by incredible colleagues, hardworking students, and supportive families that make up our school community. Teaching is my passion, and I love my Winkleman family. But I have major concerns about teaching in person. I'm worried about bringing COVID-19 to my family at home, which includes a son who has asthma and needs to use rescue inhalers and a nebulizer when he gets bad colds. I'm worried about infecting my recently widowed mother who has multiple high-risk health conditions. Her concerns. What would happen if I came back to teach in person, got sick, and gave my loved ones COVID-19? The school cannot guarantee teacher and student safety, and the district's plan, student and staff will be at risk when children will have to take off their masks to eat lunch and snacks and to take a drink of water in my classroom. Students and staff will also be at risk as we share bathrooms and teacher lunchrooms. With an in-person instruction, I also worry that kids won't be able to wear a mask all day and stay in their seats all day long. As a result of these necessary changes to in-person situation, I worry that kids will start to hate school because it will be so limiting and look nothing like it used to. I ask the Board of Education and parents of District 31 students to please give the dedicated educators of District 31 a chance to create robust, engaging, challenging, exciting, and creative e-learning for your child. We understand that the parents are concerned based on their experiences in the spring, but state guidelines have changed, and teachers have worked and will continue to work so hard to bring the best opportunities and connections to the students that we love. Children thrive on routine and structure, and we can provide this through consistent remote teaching. I ask you to believe that the Winkleman and Field teachers can still provide an incredible year for your students. The teachers that I work with are some of the most caring and dedicated, and we will make you proud. Not only am I concerned about the safety of in-person instruction, I'm also concerned about how to care for my children who are in another Glenview school district that will be learning remotely. The Board of Education can enable the teachers to do the best for their students by ensuring the safety of those students, the staff, and their families. From Dave Candela. Absent a pandemic, every teacher I know prefers in-person instruction to remote learning. As educators, there is no place we would rather be than in our classrooms, office, gymnasiums, etc., inspiring our students to learn while building the bonds that help them succeed. Indeed, even in a pandemic, about 85% of our teachers, when called by their principal, affirmed that they would be in the classroom should District 31 opt for in-person instruction. The other 15% or so, as much as they want to be back with their students, are inhibited by health or other relevant issues. However, it is important to note that of the 85% who can commit to in-person instruction, many of them would be returning despite having serious concerns. Late last week, the West Northfield Teachers Association asked the teachers, which of the following best describes your comfort level in regarding a return to in-person instruction for District 31 students and teachers in late August 2020, with ISB and IDPH recommended safety precautions in place, such as increased sanitation, hand washing, masks for all, 6-foot social distancing, etc. Very comfortable, somewhat comfortable, neutral, somewhat comfortable, very uncomfortable. As showing in the following results, 2/3 of our teachers were somewhat or very uncomfortable returning to in-person instruction, even with the safety precautions in place. With over 100 comments in the free-form section of the survey, the most frequent concerns had to do with student health and safety, student ability to wear masks all day and stay 6 feet apart, insufficient ventilation and air filtration, large numbers of people in enclosed spaces for long periods of time, the health of colleagues and families, effectively implementing strategies for sanitizing, disruptions to learning if students or staff had to quarantine. Aside from the survey results, I have heard from many staff over the last few days. All of them want our students, staff, and the families to remain safe and free from COVID-19 until the pandemic is under control. Most of them are concerned whether the prescribed precautions can be consistently followed or if these precautions will be effective in protecting students, staff, and families from the spread of this disease. I think there's like 3 more. And then we have our 2 comments over there. I am Carrie Fisher, the Winkleman librarian. It is an honor and my daily delight to teach children at Winkleman. I am impressed by how kind, compassionate, and inclusive the community is towards everyone. I thank the board and District 31 administrators for taking the time to carefully weigh the decisions about whether to open the school in person or remotely. I know this is a difficult decision for you all, and there will be people disappointed no matter what your decision is tonight. I have faith that you will do what is best for the children, faculty, staff, and community. I've been a school librarian for 20 years, and this is one of my favorite times of the year. The excitement of planning my classes, creating book displays, and new programs for families makes me happy and joyous. I love planning for children returning to school and throwing open the library doors to welcome them back into a world of books and information. This year, however, is not like any year that I've experienced because of the daily traumas that the COVID-19 has brought upon the entire world. My heart is heavy and with worry and concern for our community and the world. I'm afraid for our students, families, faculty, and staff, and even for myself. I generally want what is best for all of us. My number 1 job is to protect your children in every way possible while they are at school, physically, emotionally, educationally, and socially. It will break my heart if we return to the building and just one child, teacher, or staff member becomes ill with the virus. I do not think this is an unrealistic scenario. Churches, camps, and businesses have had to shut down after reopening due to an outbreak. Schools are going to be no different. We want to believe that if we are wearing PPE, using hand sanitizer, and staying 6 feet away from everyone in the building, then we are going to be protected and won't contact the virus. I'm sure that's what the Major League Baseball players thought, and within a week, the players, with all their access to daily testing and medical care, began testing positive, resulting in games being canceled the first week. I fear that our school district could be heading into a similar direction by starting in-person school and then in a week or 2 having to go into remote school simply because people in our community test positive for COVID-19. I worry for our students that the little things that make school such a wonderful place for them will not be available because we must follow strict CDC guidelines. Is it realistic that we can stay 6 feet away from the children all day? What will a crying 5-year-old think when his teacher isn't able to help him tie his shoes? How will a crying child feel when we cannot hug or comfort her when she misses her mom and dad? How frustrating will it be when children cannot sit together, work together, share pencils, markers, books, toys, balls, or sports equipment on the playground during recess? Socialization during the time of COVID-19 will not look the way children socialized in the past. We all want the virus to be contained so we can indeed return safely to our normal school life, in the building, working in groups, sitting next to our friends, whispering, talking, and playing together without worry of becoming sick. That day will come, no doubt, but it's not here yet because COVID cases increase every day, including in our region. As of July 31st, our positivity rate is 5.8%. Sadly, schools all over the world have opened their schools only to close them again due to cases of the virus. Again, I want to thank you for your time as you discuss and then decide whether to open District 31 in person or remotely. I'm hoping that the necessity of having this discussion virtually just 15 days to our opening is also taken into consideration as you make your decision. Two more from Betsy Maher. I write to you today to voice my concerns about opening of our schools for in-person instruction. As you know, there are varying opinions about whether or not to open the schools for in-person instruction. Some view it as an easy decision. I view it as one of the most difficult decisions you will ever have to make as a board member. At the age of 15, I knew I wanted to go into the field of education. I wanted to try and make a difference, to make a positive impact on a young person's life. Teaching is one of the most direct ways one can make such an impact, and being a teacher is an invaluable contribution to one's community. There's never been a day when I did not look forward to going into school. Never have I said, I just do not want to do this anymore. I do not like what I'm doing. I can honestly say I still love what I do. I love going into work and seeing my students and colleagues. But after 29 years of teaching, going on to 30, for the first time ever, I'm fearful of going into work. I'm fearful that I will not be able to do the job I absolutely love. You're going to hear similar stories of mine from my colleagues. You will hear through their own words how much they truly love what they do and how much they enjoy teaching your children. But you will also hear how they too are fearful about returning to work. Please do not misconstrue our fear of teaching in person as a sign of not wanting to work. We all know the importance of having students in school, and the teaching remotely is not ideal. However, we are more afraid for the safety of your children. We are afraid that even with all the sanitation protocols and procedures put into place, it still might not be enough to keep our students and staff safe. I'm one of those teachers who is absolutely terrified that if I go back to in-person instruction, I may contact the virus and bring it home to my 6-year-old who has severe asthma. I simply do not want to take that risk, and it'll hurt me deeply if something happens to any one of our students. What I ask you as the board is to listen to our voices as these letters are read to you. Listen to how each and every one of us love our students and love what we do, to how many are fearful, and then ask yourself, is in-person learning worth the risk of your child's or any other child's safety? From Lynn Merrill, I am writing to share my thoughts and feelings regarding the start of the school year. As the COVID positivity rates continue to climb, I find myself in a constant state of apprehension and fear when faced with the prospect of returning to in-person learning in 2 weeks. Honestly, I'm afraid for myself, my disabled son, my elderly mother, and for the Winkleman students, staff, and families. I personally find myself in an untenable situation in which I have to choose between caring for my son or mother and returning to work. Both are extremely high risk for complications from any illness, let alone this virus. I myself am at higher risk due to my age. Additionally, I believe that our students will be placed at risk. With the size of our student body and staff, close encounters are unavoidable. We have all read and seen news stories outlining higher COVID numbers in children involved in day camps and summer schools. It is my opinion that it is only a matter of time until we are forced to shut down because of COVID in our schools. Finally, I want to say that I love what I do and would like nothing better than to return to work without the possibility of catching a life-threatening illness. Respectfully, I urge the board to move to start the year remotely, at least until the North Suburban COVID numbers decline significantly. I thank you for your kind attention. Katie Doherty, if the school decides on strictly e-learning in the fall, how does the school intend to help new students who don't know anything about their new elementary school and need the social emotional help? I need a drink. Now we have 2 public comments, and I'm going to step out for a minute. Sorry.
We're a package deal,
You can go.
so, well. So I think everyone here knows both of us. We're active parents. I'm Allison Slade.
Lisa Brown.
And Lisa's gonna read a letter that is submitted to the board on behalf of 30 families in the district. But I just wanted to sort of, I don't read letters, I just talk. And so I will say, first of all, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I appreciate all those teachers writing in and all those parents writing in. Everyone has their own opinion, everyone has their own story, everyone is scared. And no one should be shamed for their opinion. So there's been some interesting things said, right? And everyone's entitled to their opinion, and right, like no one should be shamed for making a decision one way or another about their own family. But I will tell you, I think we're having the wrong conversation here, which I'm gonna get to in a second, and Lisa's gonna read a letter with some ideas. Like, schools can reopen safely, no, they're not on the news, because the news doesn't say anything nice or fun, or how many people are living today, they only tell you how many people are shot today. So, I am like you, I sit on a school board as well, public school board, who just ran a 4-week summer program for 80 students, and everything was fine, there was not one case there. There's no way to make it totally safe, that's totally true as well. But we are having the wrong conversation here. In all those letters from teachers, I only heard one person reference the how we're gonna do this, not the what we're gonna do. And I really want this board, and you people on the screen that I can't see over there, to think about the how. Whether we're in person or whether we're remote, there has to be a creative way for teachers and kids to meet each other in person and interact. There has to be an administrative statement about the expectation of one-to-one communication and one-to-one teacher to one student relationship building. And I didn't hear one idea about how to do that. So I think this is not a long conversation. Like, I'm sad that we all just lost 2.5 hours of our lives listening to everybody's story, which I validate, and everyone should have their opinion. But I think we all really need to focus on the how we're going to make these, connections, and how we're going to make this work in any situation.
Okay. So, dear board members, we write to you on behalf of more than 30 families in the district. Although we have our differing opinions, thoughts, and needs for the coming year, we are here together to express one common viewpoint. Many of us have already reached out to Dr. Murphy directly to share our ideas, concerns, and questions. We write to you today to ensure our thoughts are heard as you make a final decision this evening on how we start the school year on August 24th. As board members, parents, and community members, you have been bombarded with differing opinions and needs for this year. We acknowledge this shouldn't even be your decision, but the decision of those in public health. No options are going to be perfect, and each comes with risk and impact at varying levels to staff, parents, and students. However, as you consider the options of this weighty choice, it is critical that you listen to the voices and needs of the entire community, not just those making the loudest noise. We are not here to argue whether we should be in person or remote, but to ensure that families all have a choice in the schooling of their children. This includes the approval of some type of in-person model to begin on August 24th. We strongly believe there is a way to safely send students back to school if desired. Many of us are active and have been in the school planning committee meetings. Some of us are essential workers and have been working since the beginning of when this all started. While we still have concerns and understand and support that some parents may choose to keep their children at home, we should still have that choice. The data speaks for itself, with more than 50% selecting to return in person. We are all dealing with the same challenges: childcare, work, health, and safety. But one thing is clear: our kids are struggling, and the final decision should put them and their needs first.
As it stands, there are only two options: all in or all out. But it doesn't need to be this way, as we can successfully execute both or something completely different. We have some suggestions in our letter that we previously shared, which include considering hybrid models, specifically using half days to reduce the amount of exposure inside the building, eliminating lunch and recess, which eliminates a lot of the concerns you heard from the teachers related to removing masks, allergies, etc. Prioritizing K-3 learning, as these students need structure, and also students with IEPs or English language learning needs, as they need the established routine and connection to their teachers and peers. And then using outdoor space and outdoor classrooms that allow for lower risk and safe mask removal, given the fresh air. Another suggestion that we have is about providing supervision for school-age children of District 31 staff who cannot be left unattended. We heard from staff members who have children in other districts that have decided to go remote, so have some options in our letter about that as well. And lastly, what I talked about earlier, which is exploring ways for regular in-person engagement between staff and students between students and students in the event that hybrid and in-person are truly impossible. A few ideas include conducting outdoor socially distanced lessons as a class in small reading groups, one-on-one, implementing weekly reading groups or ELA lessons on the Winkleman Field, leading critical socio-emotional lessons in person via small groups or as a class, and conducting regular one-on-one conferencing between students and teachers. We know that the decision tonight is going to be difficult. We just ask that you put our children first. We strongly suggest the approval of an in-person and remote option for August 24th. Thank you for your consideration. Donna Alessia,
Lisa and Jeff Brown,
Swati Desai,
Dana and Foster Elliott,
Meredith and Brandon Estes,
Chris and Patty Fresnos,
Fleta and Alex Ginsberg,
Julie Hafner,
Sonia Ibrahim,
Sakina Karika,
Vicky and Edgar Karptas,
Megan Karikas,
Rachel and Jonathan Lavin,
Carly and Matt Levinson,
Janice McCool,
Malak and Anjali Mehta,
Chirag and Seema Patel,
Shannon Patel,
Sheetal Rai,
Allison and Michael Rothstein,
Julia Levy and Tim Riskin,
Laurel and Bobbin Shaw,
Ari and Debbie Silverman,
Sarah Smith,
Erica and Jonathan Sokolowski,
Daniel Stern,
Elisa and Jeff Steinberg,
Aaron Takipi,
Davna Webster,
Dustin and Brooke Ubit.
Helen Odesi, and Alex Sartysky.
Thank you.
No, 10%. Yeah. We're gonna walk home, and if you have hair of two moms getting run over or raped and pillaged on Landwehr, it was us. So please don't mind us. We made it as well.
Okay. So are we ready to go on? I'm gonna take one more drink before I talk again. Melissa, can you hear me? Okay. I don't know.
Responding, but somebody might be
She
muted.
can hear us, but we can't hear her.
Okay, well, Melissa, I'm just gonna go on then. Okay. So the purpose of this board meeting was to come together and kind of give a status report of where we are so we can make a decision. Not that anyone wants to hear anything more, but I do want to start off with a statement that I wrote just so we can kind of set the framework for how we're going about this. So I wrote something, I see you. I feel that is so important to say right now as we move into some of the most difficult decisions we have ever faced as a community. There are no easy decisions or even right decisions, only hard decisions. And I appreciate that I've heard from so many of you. So I need to tell you that I see you. I see you, the parents. I see the parents who are terrified of sending their child back to school. I see the parents who are fearful of the long-term educational impact if they don't send their child back to school. I see the parents who are experiencing the challenge of spring e-learning and don't want a repeat of March, April, and May this fall. I see parents that are rightly concerned about their child's unique educational needs. I see the parents that have no option but to go to work, and that childcare is non-existent or too expensive and they need schools to reopen. There are grandparents and neighbors who were support systems may not be able to fill in during this season of the pandemic. I see the parents who are frustrated that they need to go back to work and just as frustrated at their perception that the same standard isn't being placed on staff in schools. I see the parents who are making educational pods and parents who may not have that opportunity. I see parents who have chosen remote instruction upsetting their children because they want to be back with their friends. I see the parents that are fearful that the safety restrictions placed on an in-person instruction will actually make education more difficult. I see the parents who are concerned that masks cannot be worn by kids, and I see the parents who are concerned that kids won't wear masks, putting their own kids in jeopardy. I see parents who are grateful for a choice, and I see parents that fear that that choice will dilute the quality of education for everyone. So parents, I see you. And I see you, the staff and teachers. I see that every single one of you is committed to your students. Of that, there is no doubt. I see your struggle, wanting to be with your students, but anxious about all the unknown that comes with this pandemic and the impact it is having on your own family. I see you reflecting on spring remote learning and thinking about how the fall could be completely different. I see you mourning your classroom and best practices for instruction as more and more safety protocols get layered on. I see your personal struggle. Some are being forced to disclose personal health issues. Some are finding that your own children, often with their own unique learning challenges, will be relearning and you aren't sure what to do about it. I see you wondering how to balance your own e-learning schedule with that of your own children and frantically searching for childcare as we call you in. I see the teachers who are contemplating leaves, which had previously been an unthinkable idea, but the pandemic forces unthinkable ideas. I see your concerns that you feel disposable and that your safety is of no concern. I see the teachers who are frustrated that their importance is that of childcare providers and not truly as educators. I see the teachers who became educators to be with students, not stand 6 feet away with masks. Most of all, I see the teachers who miss their students in classrooms and colleagues and want to be with them safely. They are concerned for not only the education of the students, but for the mental health and safety of the students. They are worried about and miss their students. So I see you, teachers and staff. And I see you, my administrative team, and I see your sleepless nights. I see the worry and anxiety about decisions and implementation. I see you listening to parents, and I see you comforting teachers, and I see you worrying about kids. I see a team that is a new team but has already exceeded expectations and working collaboratively together. I see about how you care about this community, are working tirelessly, making new schedules, introducing new ideas, and trying to do what is right for kids. So I see you, my teammates. And most importantly, I see you, the students. After all, isn't that why we're here? I see the students who now have had learning gaps and are getting further and further behind. I see the students who had a hard time with e-learning and those who did well with it. I see students who are still sheltering in place, and I see the students who are congregating in parks every day with nary a mask in sight. I see the students who prefer e-learning, and I see the students who just want the normalcy of school. I see the students who are frustrated that their parents signed them up for remote learning when their friends might come back to the building and they won't. I see the students who are silently suffering from mental illness and trauma or are hungry or abused, and we are not there to step in and see it. I see the students who will be caring for and guiding their siblings in e-learning, sacrificing their own education. I see students who are terrified of COVID-19 and others who believe it will not touch them. I see students who are missing sports and activities and their friends and their teachers and the routines of schools. I see students who will not have a normal year no matter what, and we worry that normal just seems so far away. So students, I see you. I say all this not because I have the answer to everything, but to show that this new world we are in has created so many divergent points of view, and there is no right and no wrong. As this Board of Education discusses the fall, I implore you to remember that the decisions that are made will impact everyone differently. Some will celebrate and some will be frustrated and upset. These decisions have the potential to divide, vitriol, and animosity. I implore you to recognize the divergent points of view and the plethora of feelings and circumstances. Know that we see you. And when it comes down to it, the difference between a difficult year or a good year despite difficult circumstances is our ability to rally as a community to support each other and to listen to different points of view. There are no enemies here, only people who want the best in an impossible situation. So to each of you, I see you, and I ask that you just try to see each other too. So I wrote that, yes.
Sorry, before we go on, I don't think we can hear our colleagues on the video,
Okay.
so can we just make, otherwise we're not going to have a good discussion.
So, so I can turn you guys on here.
And Melissa talk, yeah, can someone talk?
That microphone's picking up. Melissa, you talking?
Yes, we can. Okay, so we're gonna go on. So So this is where we were in July. And I just put this on here because we talked about needing to get our whole dashboard to yellow, from the yellow and red to green. In the last 2 weeks, we have done a lot of things to get us there. We have had various parent and staff advisory meetings. I put them on here so you can see that, we had the Winkleman one, we had a field one, we had one on curriculum, we had one on social emotional learning. We've had live streaming committee with the staff. We've had re-registration of District 31 students. We've had consultation with individual staff about their availability to staff programs. And there's been professional development, planning for PD, reworking building schedules. It's been busy. Also, because we love to have all the information before we start working, the state came out with new guidance about a week and a half ago. We appreciate the guidance, but it is a little frustrating sometimes to get the guidance when you're in midstream. But what was really relevant about this guidance had to do with e-learning. We had talked about before that e-learning was 5 hours of instruction every day. That e-learning, even if we were e-learning, that there had to be 5 hours of instruction and engagement. But the state had never talked about synchronous versus asynchronous. And then now here they came out with a recommendation, not even a recommendation, it was strongly recommends. I think it's more strongly recommended because there are districts that have no e-learning capabilities. So really, if you have e-learning, this is what we need to do. So they recommend that at least 2.5 hours per day that there should be 2.5 hours per day of synchronous live instruction and live interaction between students and their teachers. So what that means is if you're K through 8 in our district and you are live and you're working with remote instruction, whether it's everyone or a group, 2.5 hours of that need to be live synchronous instruction. And the other 2.5 hours, because we don't want kids like stuck to a computer all day, can be independent and group work. And we are working in the last week and a half on top of everything else to figure out the best way to do that recommendation and how we can possibly record things for kids who can't be there. And it is a struggle because it requires a commitment to be for the kids to get that 2.5 hours. We also re-registered. So here is our data hot off the press. There's still a number of kids we've been trying to contact to try to get the answer, and so there are a few things that are missing. So you'll see for each grade on here, we have how many have signed up for in-school, how many have signed up for e-school, the total numbers, and then the percentage of in-school versus e-school. And right now we are looking at about 61 or 62% have signed up for in-person instruction, and 38% have signed up for remote instruction. We are glad to be able to get that choice. It also helps us in scheduling kids. I will say this is a good number for us because it reduces the amount of kids in the room and it helps us create a more rigorous remote learning program for our students. This is probably, I would say other schools in the area are having much greater percentages of kids for in-person instruction. So now it's time to update this dashboard to determine the feasibility of returning to in-person learning. So the first thing we had, this used to be green, and it's hard to tell on the screen, but this is a yellowy green. This is a lime green. We are no longer solidly green in this one, but we're not yellow and we're not red. That Illinois is in phase 4 or 5. This is data from today. They don't have the weekend data on here yet. Back in July, we were at about a 4.1 positivity increase. We are now at a 5.8, I believe. 8% is that threshold that we were told that the governor would start making decisions about our region to bring them back to e-learning and closing down schools. Right now, we're at kind of a lime green because we're still below that 8% threshold. But if it continues at the current rate, which is right now about 1/10 of a point per day, some days 2/10, by the first day of school, we will have reached that threshold. And I'm not exactly sure what the governor is going to do, but my understanding is that brings us back in our region to a different, to phase 3. So right now, just being up front, we are at a limey green. I wish I'd known when we started this that I needed varying shades of gradient to put it in here, so I'm just kind of doing it. But we've had 16 days in a row of positivity increases, and it doesn't look like our rate is going down anytime soon. So no matter what decision is made here, there is a big chance that we will not make it to the first day of school. And there is also talk that that decision will be coming from the governor sooner rather than later for the different regions. But as of now, this is where we're at, and we're still in that lime green because we're still below the number.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Illinois is still in phase 4, correct?
Illinois is in phase 4.
This is green then. I don't understand.
It's
If the criteria is phase 4 or 5, and we're in phase 4, we're green.
And so I have it as a lime green because I am acknowledging the fact that this number is going down. So I didn't put it yellow and I didn't put it red, but I did want to indicate that this number is not making the upward trend that we need because it's moving backwards. And I would be remiss not to mention that to people. Scheduling and procedures generally allows for 6 feet social distancing per IDPH, ISB, AAP, CDC. There's been no change. We were green before, we're still green. We've only done more in the last week and a half, including we have a new app for Winkleman that helps with pickups to make it so that kids aren't running to each other. Skyward came out with an app for parents to do the self-screening in the morning. So there are things that have happened that help just make this probably greener. 7 to 10 day supply of PPE and sanitation materials. We're good. We were good before. That hasn't changed. So the big one out there is a sub pool of at least 30 individuals committed to being subs. I have this more as a limey green. We are no longer red. We're not even really yellow. While we have a lot of people in our pipeline right now to become subs, it just takes longer than 2 weeks to actually go through the whole process of interviews, getting the license. But if we look at the people in our pipeline with the people we already have, plus the fact that I'm asking you to approve the contract for Kelly that we agreed on last weekend, we are looking good to meet this metrics by the start of school. And we're well on our way. This is not enough for us to close school at this point because we have made, thank you to the people who applied. We've done a push. We have not changed our practices for subs. We only recruited heavier. And now we're going to also go out to Kelly and get more. But Tina's been calling people as more and more people have applied, and we're getting them through the pipeline. We just need them to finish the pipeline. Illinois Department of Public Health allows schools to be reopened. There is no change. We currently have no active cases of COVID in our school. We have, I'm no longer the only person who is certified in contact tracing anymore in our district. I know Janine has finished that. I believe Tina has finished that. We have a few other staff members who are finishing that. Procedures are being developed and training planned just to keep us as safe as possible. It is important to know out there that what we've learned from like District 225, who's had cases in their camps and everything, is that the likelihood of a whole class being quarantined if there is a case in the class is pretty strong. So as we move to in-person instruction, it's important for parents to realize that there needs to be some understanding and flexibility that even if you're in school, there is a chance, if there is a case, that a whole class may be quarantined. The ability to live stream classes was yellow. This one's now a limey green as well because we're on the way. There was a live streaming committee to get together to talk about it. We have acquired a live stream setup for each teacher. This is a box of the actual delivery from last week. That includes a camera, microphone, and tripod. So we do not have to rely just on the computer for like live streaming. There is more of a setup to make your classroom a studio or your home environment if you're remote teaching, more of a studio environment. We were very fortunate to get it because the original notice was 12 to 14 weeks. And our distributor managed to eke out a supply and say, if you're willing to take it today, we can get it to you tomorrow. So we're like, yes, let's do it. The reason this is so important is especially at Field, but also at Winkleman. For Field, when we look at kids who are enrolled in e-learning, because it's that we're running kind of a concurrent live streaming model. One of the fears out there from parents was that their kids would get kind of a watered down experience because they would lose the rigor. So they wouldn't necessarily be in that math class getting the same teacher as they would have gotten in person. And in middle school, we have, there's so few staff, they wanted that rigor. So what'll happen is there'll be 16 kids in a class or whatever it is. And some of the people will be there and some of the people will be from home. And they will all be watching the same instruction and interacting with each other virtually. So kids don't lose their class. And if a student is sick or needs to be quarantined, they can maintain their place in that class. We might have to live stream. There might be a few classes that have an overflow scenario. We'll do some kind of live streaming in there too, but we can then still have students in the building for the most part. Winkleman, live streaming for students who are not present in the live classroom. So we're not looking at the same model for Winkleman. Developmentally, that's not appropriate. We are looking at sections, remote learning sections. So everyone in the section and the teacher will all be remote. But if there is a student who maybe is quarantined in a live classroom, then the live streaming is the model so they don't have to change teachers and they can keep up with their classes. There'll also be some live streaming for students with specialized supports or with student services, as we have some teachers who will teach some remote, some in person, and need to combine groups that way. So we're lime green. We still have a lot of details to work out with our staff in terms of expectations, how it'll work, training, but we are in the right trajectory to make this happen. And I do acknowledge that there are a lot of nerves about what does live streaming mean. And we're in this whole brave new world right now where we're figuring out what everything means to get this done. So as we come to the next one, which is staffing, is what are the considerations when we're looking at this? And I want to bring up two really important points, because what I hear a lot of is just go remote learning, it'll solve the staffing problem of people having health issues, because everyone can remote learn from home. So unless there's the decision that we are not coming back for a long time, I want to make sure that we are staffing with a model that will provide continuity in programming for staff and students. The last thing I want to do is to maybe start remote learning and then go back in person in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is, and that student's teacher cannot be present in that in-person classroom. That's really difficult, and that's really difficult for that student, and that's not what we want. We want to be very cognizant of putting people in positions that they can go in person or remote as needed, because we are all hoping we are not living in a remote world this year. And while there's always a possibility of some disruption, we don't want to go into it knowing that there'll be a disruption. We also want integrity in staffing, because I hear, well, just assign that teacher because they're certified to that position. It's not that easy, because teachers may be certified for a wide variety of things. For instance, I'm certified in Latin. You would not want me to teach Latin because I haven't touched it in 30 years. But for instance, you could have a middle school content area teacher who's also certified in K-8. You wouldn't stick that middle school content area teacher in a kindergarten or first grade or second grade or third grade classroom or so on. We want, especially in this year, we want to make sure that teachers know their content and know their grade bands, because we don't want to have a situation where we're throwing all these new methods of instruction and they're struggling with the content or the grade level. So as we work with staffing, it's really important for everyone to acknowledge that we're being strategic with staffing. So if someone can't commit to coming in person because of health issues, we're having to look for other options, because we are looking at two types of positions in the district. Hybrid, assigned teachers who would be able to adjust to in-person and remote instruction as needed in order to provide easier transitions for students and staff as we move from in-person to remote instruction and back again. This will include the use of live streaming. And I think I also want to throw it out there to students and parents who are listening. We fully acknowledge that when students are in person, a lot of the in-person instruction this year will have elements of e-learning. Students, if they're collaborating in a group, will have to use Google Meet, whether they're in person or here. They're not going to be able to get up and share resources or move across the room. The strategies and activities that you do for e-learning are easily appropriate, in fact, necessary for in-person instruction. It's not necessarily two different preps. It should be a very similar alignment. The advantage to in-person is that they're in the building and you can give a little bit better formative assessment and like, hey, that looks good. and it's easier than in a remote environment, but instruction and teaching will not be that much different if you're remote or in person. Remote only, our teachers, assigned teachers will teach students who have elected remote instruction. So those who are only doing remote, and we have a few teachers who might be able to do a hybrid of both that are more specialists. So where are we? We can bring people back with staffing from when we talk to. I mean, you've heard our teachers and you've heard their commitment. You've also heard their fears. You've heard their concerns. It's a really difficult position. For Winkleman, we would have 14 remote positions and a few student services positions, but like gen ed positions, 14 to cover 14 sections needed for remote learning. All class sizes are low, whether you're remote or in person, because we want to, even if you're remote, we want to have the smallest group possible so teachers can make that connection and have more of that one-on-one ability so they're not overwhelmed with 30 kids in a remote section, that it'll really mirror what's being done in person. We'll have live streaming for absent students and for student services. We have been talking for teachers. Teachers will apply for our remote positions. Considerations will be given to staff members with documented health concerns and or child care concerns after that. And then we're going to fill that, but our health concerns will be the first ones we look at if it's an appropriate match with the area. Just because we want to make sure that we're not just assigning, we want it to be, it makes sense for that grade level and that person to teach that grade level. For field, it looks a lot different because we talked about the concurrent live streaming model. There are no general education remote positions. Okay, we are planning to live stream for the students at home, ensuring continuity of instruction for remote and in-person students. It is developmentally different than elementary school. That's why we can approach that. And we also have specialists who, may not be able to teach just 5 kids in a in-person section like an advanced math class. They really do need to do that continuity with the whole class. We also may have to, in order to get this staffing model, we may have to be creative and consider a reverse live streaming model for staff members who must stay home but are hard to find specialty areas like math, where they can live stream into the classroom, but we have another adult in the room, but they're still getting the best quality of instruction because we have the teachers who really know how to do it. Because remember, that was our other point, is that we want to have the best teachers possible in whatever method teaching the content. And we don't want to lose those teachers and replace them with someone who may not know what they're doing, because this is the year we need to know what everyone's doing. We would need to hire some teachers who would not be able to return in person during phase 4, and maybe hire some staff. They aren't teachers, but more like college kids who can sit in a room and help supervise, or other adults in the area. So it's different than a teaching assistant to help supervise if we need to do that reverse live streaming. But if you ask me if we can do it, we can if we're creative. And I think that is what I was asked as a team, we were asked to do, is what would it take to bring everyone back? First we determined we could do it safely. And by the way, the 60-40% split really helps us to even do that even more safely. That's what we would have to do, is be creative. So what does that mean for the fall 2020? We can logistically move forward plans. Yes. Okay. Yes. Yes. Yep, because if your child is assigned to an in-person and then they need to stay, whether they're sick or they're quarantined, as long, because they're kids who might have a cold, but they're still fine to learn, they would have the ability to be to be in the stream so they wouldn't lose track with their specific class. We're right, that they do more planning. Hi, yes, yes. So Laura had asked about kind of the model and wanting to clarification about live, the kind of the live streaming. So if you are a Winkleman student and you selected remote instruction, you will have a remote teacher who plans for remote instruction, and you will have specials teachers who will come in and do different sections and all that, but it'll all be remote and all your classmates will be remote. If you are in person and there is a student who is sick or quarantined or something, and they cannot be there, we are offering the live stream in order to help those kids stay connected with their class. We know that there are inherent challenges. One of the reasons why we bought a setup for each and every teacher. We are fortunate that many of our colleagues in this community are looking at live streaming as well, and we are sharing resources and ideas. I know some of the hybrid models in our neighboring districts is half the kids will be here on Monday, the other half will be there on Tuesday, but the group that isn't there will be live streaming with their, will be live streaming. So it won't be like the same instruction on both days. It'll be a continuation. Either you're learning from home or you're live streaming. And so we're lucky that we'll have the ability to collaborate through our technology, through our curriculum. Becky is our curriculum and instruction. We're all looking to each other to what are the best practices for live streaming. As we look at some of the guidance from the state of Illinois, live streaming is recommended as a methodology for keeping kids engaged in the classroom and for keeping kids as an option. And realistically, if you're going in person, live streaming is really the only way to manage a lot of this, but it will take our 5 days of Institute Day are busy because we are learning these things because every teacher who is doing in-person instruction is also doing remote instruction. It is hard.
Are
Yes.
we going to try to fix the audio, or are we just going to roll? This is a question for you and Melissa, because it sounds like the public can't hear the remote board members. So are we going to fix that, or are we just gonna roll? I just wanna make sure we're all clear.
Nino, do you have a suggestion?
Can a remote board member talk though?
Can a remote board member talk?
Hello, it's Melissa. Just trying to test if you can hear me.
We're good.
They can.
We're good now? Okay.
Awesome.
Okay. So what does that mean for the fall 2020? We can logistically move forward with plans to reopen school, understanding the following. We are still needing to confirm, refine, hire staff over the next 3 weeks. The positivity rate is going up, and it is probable that school will not reopen in our region. I mean, it's not definitive, but that is where a lot of the talk right now is that the state will come in. We could be wrong because the state always surprises me in one way, shape, or form. I also wanted to mention that there will be whole classrooms that will be quarantined if there's a positive case of COVID-19. That's what we've kind of been told through some of our contacts at the Cook County Department of Public Health. And as always, the staff are fully committed to the students and families in District 31. And as you heard, the general feeling of staff is that they would prefer to open in remote setting in order to guarantee the health and safety of staff and students and to focus on a single delivery method. Saying that though, the question that was asked to me is, could we open in person? And I believe we could. Now that's more lime green. This is all green. I mean, there are lime green in there because we're still working on things and we still have 3 weeks until 3 weeks from today that students arrive. And we still need every single moment of that time. That's not yellow, that's lime green. So that's really where we're at right now. Okay, question. So I guess from you guys, the direction of, are we going to move forward with our plan as presented at the last board meeting, which is we will open up in a hybrid environment in the sense that we will have some people remote and the rest in person? Or are there concerns enough that we want to reconsider a different method for the start of the year?
So this is a lot of information, and I know my challenge is that I want my kids back in school. I think a lot of people did. A lot of people do. And I chose to sign them up for in-school live instruction. Yeah, my concern is, as I'm hearing this and as we've seen the numbers go up, I'm sitting here thinking there is nothing that we are doing, as a community to stop those numbers from going up. It's inertia, right? Until something stops something in motion, it's going to keep moving. And that's my concern, that we're going to do all this and then come first day of school, first week of school, we're going to have to go remote because it's out of our hands. And I'm just worried that we haven't allowed parents who need to plan. Like a parent like me who's planning on going live, if we're being honest, how long will we stay live? I realize we don't know. But when you say we will probably end up remote at some point, are we taking away the opportunity for parents to plan then for a remote learning environment over the next couple weeks? Are we solving for the wrong problem by making a decision to proceed as we have been the last couple weeks? And I want to hear what my fellow board members have to say. I personally am I'm at a loss. I think, we've all been watching what recent boards in the community, their decisions. Every school district has different challenges and different needs. On some levels, we keep hearing this, same storm, different boats. We're in a different boat than other people. And I personally don't know the right answer. I appreciate the administration, the administrative team, and I know teachers are still working on this. I know they're thinking about this. I would like to hear what my fellow board members think, because I'm at a loss to some degree.
In regards to planning, Melissa, I mean, I think it would behoove 100% of the folks in the state of Illinois to plan or understand what they would do, those with kids, those without kids, those who have businesses, if Illinois returned to phase 3, because that is a possibility. How real a possibility, we can all look at different numbers, look at our regions, et cetera, and speculate. But in terms of planning as a parent, you know, we've said, hey, if we're in phase 4 and 5, meaning we're allowed to have kids and the rest of the stuff is green, then we're gonna have in person. If you're a parent who chose in person, we don't control Illinois phase, you know, right, you know, the distinction for our region. And parents need to plan that. It could go back to phase 3 and, you know, make those arrangements. So they should understand, that my advice would be make sure they understand what would happen in that scenario.
I agree with you, Jeff. And I think, yes, parents need to plan, but here's my thought. And again, if we're not asking the right questions, we're going to come up with the wrong answer. So that's my concern is, are we asking the right question? Like you raised a good point that, you know, what would happen if we end up in phase 3? And if we aren't, I don't know that right now I have the answer for that myself, but if the question were phrased as, we will likely end up in phase 3 at some point in the next 6 months, or at least at some point this school year, then what are we doing as a school district to help support our teachers and our parents so that we actually meet our mission, which is to ensure the best education that we can provide? It's a different kind of an answer.
Erin, as part of the school training that you're doing with the teachers and whatnot, is a full remote
Yes.
plan part of that?
Yes, because everyone's going to be using, because we also acknowledge that teaching within the classroom is the similar strategy, remote learning strategies, and we are going to be training on all the equipment as well. We have 5 days that are pretty jam-packed. We are not, why remote learning is a big part of our plans for the start of the year, regardless if we're in person or remote. And we have days in September, October, and November that will also be tweaked to continue to develop the best instruction for this year, whether you're remote or in person.
So I kind of want to start by saying I know it's been a long road for all of us, right? Parents, teachers, administrators. I mean, it's just been a crazy time. I want to thank Dr. Murphy and her team for putting together a plan that addressed what we asked her to address. I want to thank them for coming up with a model that allows flexibility to go back and forth. You know, we're sitting here talking about we may at some point be all remote learning. Schools may shut down. We may also be at some point where schools are opening up. So I think it's smart planning that we have a model in place that's flexible enough to accommodate all of that. I also appreciate that we are looking at a model that affords choice for families and affords some choice for teachers and their preferences, and keeping safety of staff and students at the forefront. You know, it's a hard decision to make, and I don't think I'm one to make a decision one way or another. The fact that we're all in the green, I'd prefer our families to make those decisions for themselves, knowing full well that whatever model you choose may change in 3 weeks or 6 weeks or 6 months. And so as a mother, as a teacher, as someone who has a husband who's an essential worker and I'm trying to juggle it all on my own, as someone trying to figure out childcare while also trying to figure out how I'm going to serve my own students' needs. We're all dealing with these struggles, and I need to make a choice that's best for me and my family, knowing full well that what I decide today, I'm going to have a different plan 3 weeks from now or 6 months from now. And I think whether I choose in person or remote for my family, I'm still going to be in that situation at some point, having to alter my plans. So I guess for me, since we are in the green and that's something we talked about, I don't want to prevent us from moving forward with a model that allows choice and takes into account what our staff is looking at. Safety is number one. We need to get behind that 110%, and it sounds like we are. And I guess that's all. That's my feedback.
Erin,
Yes.
my concern is this. I think, I agree. I think it'd be great to have the kids back. What worries me is that our 5 days when we come back are so packed, and live streaming and tech and remote and rewriting lessons for live or remote is a lot of work. But my bigger question is when we have a letter from our union president that says that 2/3 of our teachers, I don't remember the language, but are mildly to very uncomfortable, are custodial staff. These are the people that are supposed to clean and sanitize, that are putting up the plexiglass right now, right? The plexiglass between students and teachers at tables, saying that they're not comfortable. These are the people that know our building, that know how we operate, that know how kids, when we can't keep adults to keep their masks on at the side of Little League games, how can, I just wonder, we're making a decision. I know where parents stand, and I know where the staff stands, and I think everybody wants kids back, but I'm really worried that there's this really important two constituencies, right? So the teachers, as well as, I think just about, there's a lot of call in education, much like the Allison and Lisa's letter, which is calling for not either model. So to Melissa's point, that it's not about like, are we live or not? Are you picking e-learning or not? It's about, okay, teacher, here's 16 kids. We got to figure out how to get them to cross some educational milestones this year, knowing that it's going to be different. It's going to change. The virus is unpredictable. The governor's going to shut the state down at least a couple times throughout this year. We know that. And I think we're answering this question of live or remote. And to Melissa's point, either choice, I think, leaves a big constituency at the door, right? If we say we're going all remote, we're ignoring a bunch of our parents and kids that desperately need it. I heard there was a rumor going around some of our free and reduced lunch community that if they didn't register live, they would lose access to food. And so I think we leave them behind. But I think if we register live, we're leaving all of our teachers behind. And I don't know, like in our line of work, when an employer tells the staff, you show up, even, we're forcing you to show up. We've seen that really not work well in professional settings. Now there's essential workers and different things, and we're seeing hybrids for all of that. I'm worried that I don't know that this is addressing the needs of whole swaths of our constituency. I don't know how you motivate 2/3 of teachers that don't want to come back into the building.
Erin. So I've been listening to all the teacher comments, all the parent comments, and the teacher comments, they all talked about their concerns about abandoning the kids, making sure the kids are okay, but they're also worried about their own health. The parents, I understand that every home has its own restraints, whether you have a double working home. I mean, we both work. My husband's an essential worker. He works in a hospital every day. I get it. But while we are trying to put the kids first, we also need to put the educators ahead, like first too. It is not just the kids. These educators are at a much higher risk than the kids. So I want people to have a choice. I opted for my daughter to go in person because I asked her what she wants to do, and this is what she chose because she wants to get to know her teachers. But at the same time, seeing as how it's going to actually be in the classroom, those kids that need that social emotional health, they're not actually going to get it because they have to be 6 feet apart wearing a mask and can't really interact with their friends. And if we're going to take lunch and recess away, where is that social emotional health? So I don't see the difference between going in person versus staying home because either way, they're not interacting with their friends. They could probably interact more over Zooms with their friends that's what I think. But I did opt for my daughter to go in person because that's what she wanted. That's my opinion. I agree with what everybody is saying. But I do think that everybody needs to be thought of. And I think there's a lot of anger out there right now, especially amongst parents. And I think that they need to understand that we are in a very difficult position. And we're not just doing anything based on our own needs. We are trying to put everybody's needs and just be more thoughtful of your comments towards the school board members and the administrators and the teachers, because we are doing the best we can.
I guess Nancy, are you trying to say something? You're going to unmute, and I don't want to speak over you if you've been trying to speak.
I'll go after you. Thank you.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
I'm gonna tell, Daphne, thank you for saying some of that as well. I apologize. I'm in a small little room. I'm on vacation, so I'm not, I can't show up right now in there, but, I too have chosen for my kids to go back to school. It was very enlightening to hear about all the teachers tonight, and their feelings. And I do sympathize with all of them. I think that, with that, there's just so many of us in that same situation where we're all afraid to go back to work. And I mean, I struggle with that every day. So we do, as Aaron, you put it very eloquently in your statement there, to everyone, to the kids, to the parents, to the teachers. We do hear you. We really, really do. And it is a tough decision for us to make for the community. But I do believe that the community is asking for us to try this out and see how this goes. And I do believe that they're going to keep everyone as safe as possible. People go out every day, and we're all trying to go, we go to the stores, we'll go to a restaurant and sit outside. I think people are trying to have some normalcy, and people are trying to live with this unfortunate situation. And I think that us going back as safe as possible is going to be the best that Erin can do for us, in the best way she knows how to make it safe. So I just guess I'm still in support of the community who's overwhelmingly asking us to try this and see how things go. So sending the kids to school.
Aaron?
Yes.
And you may not have an answer to this, but as I'm listening to all of this, my question is, what would be different for you and the team if we were to say we're only starting remotely? I'm not saying that that's the vote or anything, but what I'm curious about is because there's a part of me that is concerned, where, it was raised at the last board meeting. Should we have all of our energy focused on one option? Like, would the district be better off if we were doing that? I put that to you. What would be different? Would it be better to, the high school started remote, and it's giving them some more time to plan, and then they're going to reevaluate in October. That was met with a lot of parental outcry. I understand, but when I hear something like that, it just makes me question then these next 3 weeks are going to fly by. They're critical. I know your team is already overworked. We're going to bring in teachers and it's going, but what would be different then? If we were to say, we're only doing remote, is there a benefit to choosing one?
Well, let me try to answer that in 2 ways. The first of what would be the same no matter what, no matter what, and what would be different. I think the same is that we would still be working on similar staffing patterns, although for teachers that have childcare issues, that would alleviate that for a short period of time and give them more opportunities to deal with that. But teachers with health issues, we would still be having the same conversations because we would want that continuity. So staffing would be the same as we try to figure that out. Our sectioning would still be the same because we would want to make sure we are providing continuity for students who are going in person and out of, in person or remote. Because if, even if we take a break for, and say, okay, we're not going to consider it till after Labor Day or after October, whatever is it, we want that continuity for students. So that would be the same. The difference is that we would be preparing teachers, our administrative team would be able to prepare teachers for a common start of year experience for every single student. Because right now we're like, okay, we need to get the remote stuff to the remote kids, and we need to get the in-person stuff, and we need to work on this lesson plan, and that's probably the biggest reason why we need this decision tonight, because we can only plan, and we need to know what we're planning for. And if we were to go into remote, there would be more continuity and focus, at least for the first couple of weeks of school. As I said, the planning for like the strategies for remote learning, that's the same regardless if we're in person or out of person, but just that experience of getting all kids integrated into the school year would be the same. So we would have more of a singular focus. So there's my honest answer. What would be the same and what would be different? If you guys have something else you want to add, you're more than welcome to. The administrative team is here, by the way. They're just in the corner.
I think another give them more time to learn the new technology that we want to possibly use.
Yeah, it could give them more time to learn the new technology that we want to use. I mean, 5 days is a lot, but it's you're going to use every single moment of it. And it's a lot of new stuff.
They can use the live streaming that we purchased at home.
Right.
So they would be able to practice.
So one of the things with the live streaming equipment and why we bought one for everyone is that if you are teaching from home, you can set it up at home so you can do demonstrations, you can have a better experience even in the home setting. So it's not just for live streaming, it's a camera, microphone, and tripod, so you're not stuck like this talking to your kids, but you can do more of a demonstration model. And it's portable.
Erin?
Yes.
So to add on to Melissa's question, though, as I have seen and read stuff across all kinds of different schools all over the country, what has struck me with is schools that have set sort of common goals like understanding all the disruption that may come regardless of what we do. We're going to optimize educational outcomes. We're going to optimize for social emotional learning. We're going to optimize for teacher-student connection. And have potted kids with like needs. So like kids that have all working parents where to a teacher that might be more available in the evening, etc., versus a teacher that's got kids at home during the day. You're seeing just a lot more creativity. Like, hey, maybe they will meet live, even the remote kids in, the playground or in the field to create connection at the beginning of the year. And then they go remote when we're all going to invariably end up there by October at the earliest. You got to think, I don't know, parents realize things like if a kid today comes to school with the sniffles, they can come in the classroom. If they have cold symptoms in fall, they're not going to be able to come. So I think there'll be a lot of disruption. And I feel like we're optimizing all the logistics, the scheduling, the logistics, this conversation, instead of those higher order things. Like those 5 days, what would it look like if we set teachers loose and said, we value you, we care about, we heard you, 2/3 of teachers, but what we need from you now is crazy creativity. Would we not be on the same side of the table and working together? We're all in it together versus this sort of focus on this dichotomous path.
And I agree. I think our teachers are the most creative people I've ever seen in my whole entire life, and given that opportunity. And I know this can often be frustrating to people, but we're also working under the constraints of 2.5 hours of this and 5 hours of this and a collective bargaining agreement that doesn't really allow for that degree of flexibility. And that doesn't mean we can't have conversations, but we're trying to navigate a lot of those new things right now and we're trying to be think outside of the box as much as we can. But the reality is we also have to think within the box, because that's the box we've been given that we have to show that we are following. And it is probably, I can tell you from the administrative team, that those boxes are the most frustrating things, because it does, primary teachers go, hey, we think this is a really good way to address the students. Okay, if we're in remote learning, but hey, it doesn't check the box for the state when we have to go for our compliance visit. It doesn't check the requirements of what we have to do. And so now we have to go back to the drawing board. So the decision tonight is really important to us, because now we can say this is where we're going, and we need everyone's creativity investment in making it work in whatever it is, because our teachers are crazy creative. And they will, tonight, they will do anything for the kids. And they've been asking for what the structure is, so that way they can be creative within that structure. And part of that is some of the ISB guidelines that we get, that I think there's more forthcoming. So we'll see what gems are on our way soon.
So Erin, I have one question for you. With everything that's in front of you, if we said, hey, remove the boxes, because I have to believe that a teacher population that feels heard will give more. As wonderful as our teachers are, I think they will give more. Understanding, if we said to you as a board, what is the best path to optimize and not have our kids fall further behind? Understanding that the virus is unpredictable, that everything, what is that path for you? What is the answer that will not optimize everybody's happy? Because I'm happy with everyone being mad if it optimizes safety and security and education for our kids, right? So if you say everyone's going to be mad, but the kids will be better at the end of the year and everyone will be happier and the teachers will be better for the kids, we will make that choice, I think, as a board. So what is that? If you stopped trying to please everybody and you focused on what was best to educate, what would that choice be?
And the reality is, I think right now that's almost an impossible question, because we're not focused on pleasing everyone right now. We're not going to please everyone. I feel the heightened anxiety of every single person that we're going here. I mean, we have been charged as a school district on opening schools if certain safety conditions are met. We are charged with creating a remote learning program that gives kids 5 hours of instruction, no matter what grade, and 2.5 hours of that has to be remote learning. Within that, we have plenty of room for creativity, but the problem is we've been so focused on those two charges that until we can't get to everything else, because we've been focused on the opening the building with the safest secure environment we can, and creating a remote learning and in-person learning that meets the requirements of the state. So I don't think school districts at this point have had that luxury, and I could just be overly tired right now because it's late and I read 46 public statements tonight and all of that. I wish I had that answer. I don't have that creativity in me right at this moment, because the message that has been sent repeatedly and the charge that I had was to find the safest way to open buildings that I possibly can, and to do it following the requirements of the state of Illinois. State of Illinois keeps on changing their requirements. Okay. Do I believe our teachers will try to figure out creative things? Do I believe that there'll be a huge impetus to work evenings? No, not when we have to, there could be, but I've also had people said, oh, thank you for, that's, I heard that idea and it made me really nervous because that's not what we want either. So I don't have the answer. You asked me, my charge was figure out how to open these buildings up in the safest way possible. And I think we did that. Figure out e-learning. And then the requirements changed again after we talked to you last time. So we're still figuring that one out. But this is the hardest decision I hope I ever have to make as a superintendent. And it's not even my decision, it's your decision. Because all I can do is give you the information that I have and say, if you ask me, can I open up this building, do I think to the safest degree possible? Yes, I think we could. Can I guarantee it? I can't guarantee anything in this pandemic. It's a new experience. Every day there's new news and new information, and that's all we're doing is talking and collaborating about what we know and what we don't know. Our goal
So-
is to provide the best possible education.
I guess and Erin, this is this is not a criticism of you or the team or anything. I know you all have been working yourselves ragged. I guess what causes me concern and apprehension right now is and I hear you, this ISB, I think, has not been doing us a lot of favors. They've been doing the best they can. It's a big mess. We're not getting, we're just not getting a lot of great guidance from ISB, and I understand the challenges there. But I guess what concerns me is the charge, I think, should be what's the best way to educate our kids versus the charge being to open the school. And I think that did come from ISB, right? That was the recommendation. If
Right,
you
that's
can,
what ISB told us, and that is what
Yeah.
we kind of agreed to at our last meeting, was we were going to see if we can get it all green. Now, what we have not spent lots of time talking about, and nor have we had enough time, because we've been talking about all the nuts and bolts for all the board meeting. I mean, that's been, every single board that I know about has been talking about these nuts and bolts. That I can't talk to you about Janine and her, Dr. Gruen and her social emotional committee and all the work that they've been doing to provide supports for students and staff and a plan for coming back to deal with some of those issues that are out there. And we've started to send out information, but gosh, in a normal world, that would have been a whole presentation just in itself. And we haven't had time to talk about Becky Matheson and her work with her. I mean, she's been here in this district for a month and all the work that she is doing with the the curriculum committee and working on how do we evaluate prerequisite skills, what's the requirements for e-learning, what's the best schedule for it. We haven't talked about what the 700th schedule that April Miller has made up to try to figure out how to get the kids in the building, how to get the kids remote, and what are the best instructional practices. We haven't talked about Nino and Shatan's work with trying to figure out the best way to section and schedule, and their work with the different teams and teachers to try to figure out how we're going to get all those classes in there. So as we say that we are talking about all these nuts and bolts, and we haven't talked about how we're going to best work with the kids, those are things that we haven't had time to bring forward to the board or the community because we are stuck talking about the nuts and bolts of the schools and communities. And there is so much work going on right now that's why we have sleepless nights and we have meetings every single day, because we know all those things have to be done, but we're stymied until we have a moment to suddenly start sharing that, because that's the work that I think is going to impact the kids in whatever model that we have, and that work's being done. And we would not have enough hours tonight to share all the work that's being done right now in those areas. But so I do want to, and this is me not discounting anything anyone said, because I agree with you totally. It is all about the children, and it is all about providing the best possible instruction. I think I said in my statement the difference between a difficult year and a good year with difficult situations is how people are working together. And it's also about what's putting those kids first. I don't know what's the best for kids right now. I know it's best for kids to be with their classmates. Is it best for them to be in a classroom that's so different with teachers that are terrified to touch them? That's a hard one.
So Erin,
Yes.
first I emailed you this. I want to say thank you. You guys, I don't envy what you've been doing. Like, you guys are working so hard, and you all as administrators, you have your own families, you have your own districts that you have to figure out and plans for your children. And it's amazing how much work you are putting into this. And I wish there was an easier way to make a decision. And I am truly hoping that the parents that are still listening are hearing how hard this is. This is not just yes or no. We are having a very difficult time making the right decision, because quite frankly, there is no right decision. We are not going to make everybody happy, but with whatever decision is made, how you react to that decision is how this school year is going to be. If you are not supportive of this decision, it's going to be a bad year. It's going to be hard on everybody. So I need parents to understand that, yes, you may or may not get your way, but know that it is what you make of it. Your children are going to be happy depending on what you make of it. And the staff is doing what they can, the administrators are doing what they can, and they will always put those kids first. And we are trying to make the right decision for everybody. And hearing all these things, what you said about Janine with the social emotional, what you said about Winkleman, about April, about everything, like, there's so much work that goes into this, and I hope that everybody knows it, and I hope everyone appreciates it. This is not black and white. This is like, there's so much gray area that we don't have answers to. And this is not easy.
I agree, Daphne, and I think, for me, it still comes down to the fact, like Daphne said, there's not gonna be a right answer. I appreciate all of the comments we received and all of the input. And, there was differing comments and feedback that we received tonight from different sets of constituencies. I go back to the Illinois Department of Public Health and the Illinois School Board of Education saying that in-person learning is best if possible. I think we've shown that we can make it work. The administrative team has done a tremendous job to make that happen. We're fortunate in a district where we were able to give our families a choice, and 60+% have made a decision for in-person. Hearing about the comfort level of folks coming back to the building or not, I'm guessing some of that 60% is uncomfortable sending their kids back, but yet have still chosen it because they think it's the best choice. Uncomfort in one area doesn't necessarily make them comfortable in another area. It's not a binary thing at this point. The global pandemic, I think we're all comfortable in some ways. At our last meeting, we agreed to 7 criteria of which we would judge whether or not we're going to open up our schools for in-person learning. And if we can meet those, we would do that. It seems to me like we've shown that those are green as of today. Those could change, but those are green as of today. I think we follow suit and open up the school for in-person learning for those who've chosen it. And we allow those others to have that choice of a remote learning option.
I would say, be prepared for anything moving in the wrong direction. While the numbers for suburban cook have, I think, inched up, it was from 5, I think you said it's 5.7,
I
is that
think they're
right?
at 5.8 right now.
5.8. Now that's suburban cook. Just looking at the zip codes for our district, 60062 Northbrook, 60026 Glenview. Looking at the latest numbers by zip code, 60062 is at 4%, and Glenview 60026 is 4.7%. Now, that's just a snapshot, that's not a rolling number of days, but as you know, snapshot today, based upon the number of people who've been tested versus the confirmed cases, those are the numbers. So I like to think that our zip codes are on the low side and are not spiking up, not trending up, like suburban Cook County as a whole. And because we're in the green, I think we should still proceed and plan on being open for in-class on day one with the choice for caregivers for their kids.
Where are we? I had.
So
Jeff,
Aaron,
yes.
just to clarify, so right now, once we need to go through the next agenda item is to approve the Kelly contract. Is there the possibility then that you won't be able to get the subs, or that whole the teacher element of this is not going to work out? I just want to
I'm
know.
not as worried about the subs right now because we have a lot of people in the pipeline.
Mhm.
Like that is not my primary. We are trending in the right direction for that. I mean, if every single person who put their name in suddenly stops mid-screen, then we might have a problem. But Kelly will start the recruiting process as well. So we're in that trajectory, and then we kind of rely on the other metrics I presented last time, which is the fill rates. If we stop having the appropriate fill rates, then that's when we also look at shutting down because we can't cover and supervise the classes. Staffing, our next step, we talk to teachers. It's to put out the list of what are the remote positions and do the assignments. I know a lot of districts right now are making their decisions, and that is impacting our staff. It's a little bit like we're in this domino effect. This district makes a decision to close and our staff member lives there, and suddenly we have more challenges than we had last week because there's a lot of districts that are changing course. We need to talk to our teacher assistants, but based on the information we had when we started talking to staff last week, and the ability to be crazy creative about how we do it, and by using technology and live streaming, or maybe doing a reverse live streaming with the teacher at home and live streaming them into the classroom, we could do that. We still have a few things to hire. We have still a few confirmations to make, but we still have 3 weeks until the first day of school. But based on what we saw and what we heard, that's why we put it kind of at that lime green. It's like, okay, I think we can do it. It's hard to tell anything until the first day of school because I can't control. I don't know what's going to happen with childcare and other people's districts and all that kind of stuff, but based on the information I have. And I want you to tell this conversation we're having is not unique to District 31. Every single superintendent I've talked to are going through the same conversations with their staffs. When we've talked to the regional superintendent, he has said that he is hearing the same thing from pretty much every district. And it's it's a domino effect out there. I mean, that's why I think there was there was a push since June saying we would love a regional response, because our districts are so interdependent on each other, because most of our staff doesn't live in District 31. But yet we're being impacted by other districts because of our staff. You know, it's a connection.
So Erin,
Yes.
another quick question. If we decide to do remote learning, can there be options for some in-person stuff? I'm thinking like primarily, like I know my daughter would like to get to know her teachers, like as it's warm out, maybe they can do some outside work, or even how I know the parent letter, they discussed maybe doing like a reading here or there where they can read out, like get together and read, or if there's other, I don't know. I'm sure that people can get creative and think of other options, but is that something that has been talked about?
You know, as you're talking about, as I said, we focused a lot on the nuts and bolts. I mean, I know like April and I have had conversations about, if we're all remote, how can we get kids and staff in the building for a half day here or there, or special, you know, a special event, not necessarily coming back and doing instruction, but that social emotional piece. You know, I know we'd have similar conversations at Winkleman, but regardless, that's not what we can plan right now. We need to plan for the first week or two of school. And if we're in person, how do we get ready for that in person versus remote? Because we'll have everything. If we're remote, how are we just starting the year off on the best note possible? And then once we settle in to whatever model, then we can start looking at what are those other options we look at. The reality is, if we're remote learning or in person, the teachers are teaching a full day, whether you're remote. So to have that flexibility to come in means then we have kids not getting their remote instruction or their in-person instruction while we're trying to work that out. So that's why we need to kind of know what model we're going to, because that informs our plans.
I don't know if we're approaching midnight,
I know.
so I don't know if we need to, there's a particular decision we need to make.
So I guess I don't know if it's just a straw poll on where we're at. Because we don't necessarily need a vote.
Yeah, it's not a vote, so I agree with you, Erin.
Just wanted to make sure that was
Yeah.
the situation. Okay.
Does anybody else have any more questions or comments? All right,
No.
so I'm sorry, Laura, did you say something? Or just no? Okay. So I guess we'll just do a straw vote. I'll do a roll call so that we can give Erin and her team some guidance. Jeff,
See what the plan is decided at the July meeting.
okay. Bob,
The same, although I would say that we need to be prepared for a change and be ready for possibly remote, dictated by the state. And hopefully, if it was to be dictated by the state in that manner, that it would only be for, say, a couple of weeks or so. It would be for a lengthy period of time.
Maria,
I support the plan that Erin put forward to allow both options for families to choose from.
Laura,
As I said in the July meeting, I think we're spending a lot of resources and time planning for something that likely won't happen. And I'd much rather see us focused on optimizing education and safety than being. I think parents deserve choice as well. I just don't see us being able to deliver appropriate education with 2/3 of our staff not wanting to be in the building. So I don't support this plan.
Nancy?
I'm in favor of supporting Aaron's plan of giving everyone a choice.
Okay. Lital. I'm reading Daphne, sorry, it's Lital's name that's showing up on my screen.
Sorry, because I'm using her computer. Again, not a great decision. I agree with what everyone is saying, but I think that so much effort has been put into this by the administration that I think I need to trust what they've done. But I agree with Bob. I think that parents should be prepared for the fact that we might have to start off the year with remote learning based on just the numbers and based on what the government is going to say. So this might actually, at the end of all of this, might be out of our hands. And I hope that it turns out to be the right decision. And I hope that the kids thrive in this education. And I have all the faith in the world in our administrators and our teachers. So here's hoping.
So, I guess I keep saying to everybody, and I'll say it here for everyone, like, this year is gonna suck. I think it's just going to suck. And we're just trying to make it suck a little bit less. And I have a lot of concerns. I guess I agree with what everyone has said. There is no right answer. I very much agree with Daphne that I want to support the administrators, and I also want to support the teachers. I want to give the parents and families what they need, and I don't believe that we have the power to do that for everybody. But what I will ask from everybody, and we have just not seen this a lot, is grace for each other and patience. And and just, there are going to be a lot of technical difficulties, both online, remote, in person. There's just going to be a lot of challenge. So it'd be nice. This year is going to go a lot better if we can all try and support each other. And I'm sorry about my soapbox, but it's just, yeah, we had some technical difficulties at the beginning of this. It was out of our control. We practiced this. We did everything we could to have, this process work. We're trying new technology, and just would hope to see grace from all of the people within this district, because I know it's there. We've got a great district. So, but I believe that Erin and her team has done what we've asked them to do, and I will support this program as I support proceeding. But I do also echo Daphne. We all need to be prepared for the fact that there is, as Bob said, a good chance that things are going to change. It's changing daily, weekly, whatever. So, but thanks to everybody for all of the work that you've put into this. We really do appreciate it, and we recognize it. So we will now move on to, we need to discuss the contract with Kelly.
So
And the
it's
memo.
contract, as we discussed at the last meeting, Kelly will, and by the way, my understanding is we're not the only district in the township moving forward with Kelly right now. That we have a partner in one of our neighboring districts, which is nice to know that we're not alone in this together. It's essentially, we pay a markup for the subs, they'll do the recruiting, they'll do the planning. At this point, we are working with subs currently in our pipeline, and we will work on transitioning them to Kelly as soon as, we've just been working on the language of the contract. Kathy, do you have anything to add?
Well, I did attach the exhibit that talked about the pricing, and we did tailor this to fit our district's needs. And the contract has been reviewed by our attorney and myself, and we are waiting to get that back. We should have it by Wednesday. But we don't anticipate any issues with it, so we'd like to just move forward with the approval so we can sign it and send it in.
And I think that's it, so we would just need a motion or
Oh,
discussion.
okay. So, any discussion? Anybody have any questions? We got to see the contract and everybody look, okay. May I have a motion? Sorry, my computer closed out. May I have a motion to approve the contract with Kelly Educational?
So moved.
Second,
On a roll call. Jeff,
Aye.
Maria,
Hi, there's just one typo we need to fix, I think, in the third column.
In
It's just an
Exhibit A.
oversight, but, yes, I approve.
Bob,
aye,
Nancy,
Aye.
Daphne,
Aye.
Laura,
Nay.
and I'm gonna abstain, so. This passes, so it's approved, we've approved the contract with Kelly Educational. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Second,
And on a roll call, Bob,
aye.
Maria,
aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Daphne,
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
aye. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much.
Right?
All right.
Yeah,
I'm sure you have fun at some point.
well, I.
You know, we also-
Or exhibit A's.
Oh, okay.